Development person in the shop split.
Storage, oh, good. Thank goodness we're not getting any storage.
Oh, this one's gonna be that. Choose from many.
Yeah, yeah. It's not cheap.
He does.
What you doing? All right?
Hey, Diane.
Huh?
It's recorded.
Ready, just a lot of.
Oh, no, but I mean, we don't forget.
Mr. Mayor. That mic over there.
Yes, I checked it earlier, it scared me. But I'll check it again. Let me see.
Can't show the scene when I'm not.
Somebody's not muted over here.
After an hour, I call you like 911.
You're trying to.
Sorry, anniversary and accident. Oh, it's my wife's birthday. Oh, really? I took her out last night. I'm taking her out tomorrow night. So it doesn't matter to her. It's just stuff back here.
On Zoom, but I'm gonna.
Still here.
Hang on. Yeah, I do too. No, I'm not in audio,
10 years.
but I'm not in audio.
It does appear this.
I'll just turn them. It's just. My gate, right? And it's pretty. I mean, it's nothing. I'll remember that. All right. All right, we'll go ahead and get started this evening with the Centerton Planning Commission meeting, June 20th, 2023, with the roll call.
Jeff Safar. Joey Engel.
Here.
Devin Murphy.
Here.
Craig Langford. Gary Harris.
Here.
John Sessoms.
Here.
Ben Lewis. Tony Davis. Brandon Swoboda.
All right, first thing on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from 6/6/2023.
John, I motion to approve the minutes from 6/6/2023.
Second. Ben.
Motion and second. Is anyone opposed? All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the admin approvals. There's three, 2 home occupations and a track split. Are there any questions or comments on any of the admin approvals? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the admin approvals.
Mr. Tony, I make a motion to approve the ratification of administrative approvals.
Second.
Motion and second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Under old business, we're actually going to move the track split discussion for the greenhouse mini storage down so that it's with the agenda item. So we'll bring it back to the table then. So just note that we'll do that. Under new business, first thing this evening is track split 2305 Steel Property. It's a replat / combo at the southwest corner of Seba and Main. 3 tracks, total 6.324 acres. 2 tracks. One is 1.49, one is 2. So one is 4.55. And the applicant here, just to give us a quick overview, what we need to know.
Filter with Ozark Civil Engineering. As you stated, so the track split on the southwest corner of Seba and Maine. It's 6.056 acres. The difference there was there's some right of way dedication from the original. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Kayla?
So the reason this one is down instead of up with the admin approval is because they're dedicating right of way along Seba. It's 50 feet. And then they're also dedicating a utility easement that's off-site for, I believe, the sewer. It connects to like the back of Legacy Sports Academy. And right of way along Main Street already exists. So there are some minor staff comments remaining regarding showing that utility easement and then some minor land issues. And they're also doing, there's an access easement along both sides of the property so that future access is available for both sides. And then they're also doing a 10-foot landscape easement on the back side of that access easement to block the back side, which we'll talk more about in the development.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
Just change the acreage on item I.
Nature.
Yeah, he said it was different, yes.
Yeah, it should be 1.497.
If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion for track split 2305.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve track split 2305.
Don, second. Motion and a second. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right, next on the agenda is track split 2309, JP Specialty right of way and easement dedication. 11301 West Arkansas Highway 72. The parent is 22.31. Track 1, 17.66, track 2, 1.29. Is the hey Jeff.
Going.
What you got going on?
Thanks with the basic associates. This goes along with item H and it's dedicating the right of way and easements for the utilities. We're putting through that large scale.
Kayla, anything we need to know about this one?
Yeah, same thing as the last one. It was moved down because they're dedicating right of way. It's 50 feet along Highway 72. And as well as 80 feet along the west property line to build out a major collector that's designated on the master street plan. And all the utility and drainage easements that are shown are dedicated for the proposed storage world development that we'll talk about later. This one also has minor comment remaining regarding labeling and making sure that the 50 feet is shown correctly, as well as there's a overhead power line that runs through the middle of the property, just making sure it's got proper dedicated.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? If not, then I would entertain a motion for track split 2309.
Motion to approve track split 2309 JP Specialty right of way and easement dedication.
On second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, next on the agenda is a public hearing item. This is for planned unit development 2303. Tycoon Master Development. It's a mixed use. It's at the northeast corner of Tycoon and Nugget, 140 acres, zoned A1. Proposed mixed use of commercial and residential. Is the applicant here to give us an overview?
Hey, good evening. My name is Chris Tilley. I'm with Odyssey Engineering. And yeah, this is master development. We've got a mix of everything. We've got commercial, we've got residential. It's gonna be varying densities in residential. There's gonna be a park dedicated to the city with it. And then we'll do all half road improvements all around this. And I'm here to answer any other questions that you have.
Thanks. Diane, you want to give us a staff overview?
Yes, this project is 140 total acres. It's located at the southeast corner of Motley Road at Nugget Road. So it's kind of on the south side of Centerton. And it also abuts West Tycoon Road and also South Tycoon. They are requesting several different types of uses. We have C2. We have R3 multifamily. Yeah, R3 multifamily, R4 multifamily, and also single family. The single family is going to be 24 acres, and I will get to that when I get to that actually in my report. It is going to be multi-phases. They're going to start with the single family phase, which is everything that you see kind of in the yellowy gold color on there. They are requesting that they have an extended timeline for this PUD because obviously they're not going to be able to solve out all at once. So they are requesting up to 10 years for the actual full construction of it. But like I said, they are wanting to come in pretty soon and start with the single family portion of this development. Now, this is located in the 55 noise contour for XNA. But XNA does say that this particular type of development in the 55 noise decibel level, there we go, is compatible because it's far enough away, but they would like that We still include something on the plats for the different sections about for navigation easement and another thing that you're in this flight path kind of area. But that was all that they had on that. It is 2 parcels. And the uses right now, they're not consistent, of course, because it's all agriculture. They would like to wait, and planning have recommended also, since again, there's a whole bunch of different pieces to this that they rezone when they come in with the different developments instead of doing it currently. But as far as zoning, you will have to do an application with each phase of development. And they are proposing, like he said earlier, an event center, 2 storage unit lots, general commercial, 135 single family lots, 240 multifamily units, and 57 buildings and or 24 dwelling units for the R3 multifamily. Everything will be the typical underlying zoning, except for the multifamily. They are asking for the R4 MF 24 units per acre. In their code, the R4 MF is 18 units per acre, and the same thing with the R3 multifamily. They would request 12 units per acre, and the basic code is 8 units per acre. And of course, storage units in C2 are allowed conditionally. They are not typically allowed in C2 without a conditional use. So with this PUD, we also have gone through and created conditions that would go with this PUD that would have to be followed for those storage units. And they have 2 different ones. They have one at the northwest corner. So a mouse. Oh, a mouse decided to take a nap. Plug it back in, technology. The parcel, oh, hello. Okay, Eric took over. Up at the northwest pink, going to be all interior storage. And then the southwest pink at the bottom is going to be your more typical storage with the, separate buildings. But as far as recommended conditions, the ones located at the southeast corner of Nugget should be the interior climate controlled facility with no separate metal building. So just, a nice brick building with all interior storage. And so the ones located at Nugget and Tycoon shall be screened from public right of way with open landscaping. And for architectural, any building that faces a public right of way should include a facade with varying articulation and architectural finishes, such as, brick, textured concrete block, cement baseboard, so on and so forth, but no aluminum or steel siding should be allowed. So that way it would coordinate more with the surrounding commercial and also like multifamily residences that would be around it. An opaque physical barrier shall be required. That shall be a minimum of 8 feet height. They consist of wood or masonry fencing. And we also would request that there be screening also as far as, trees and shrubs. And that also goes with the landscaping, that it should meet the code. Of course, right now we have the draft, but since you are coming in at different times, once the landscape code is approved, then you would obviously have to follow what that approved landscape code is. Parking for the storage units would be 1 parking space per employee, 2 visitors and 1 handicap. That's for the one that's all interior. I mean, the regular typical standard storage units. And then the one that is all interior, since you're gonna have more people that are gonna need to park. So that you have a parking space per employee plus 5 to 10 for people that are having to park to unload their stuff and take it inside. No outdoor storage, so no RV storage or parking, boats, trailers, vehicles, etc. shall be allowed with either one of those. That way, that's not going to be an issue with the adjacent properties. Hours of operation shall not be restricted. However, we would need site lighting for each of those developments. The ownership currently is all under one ownership. Of course, since they are going to be doing different pieces, are they wanting to sell each of the commercial? Are they going to retain ownership of those? Yeah, obviously with the subdivision, it'll be divided.
My understanding is, as of right now, at least, is it's all gonna be one developer.
Density, like I said, with the underlying zoning for the R4 MF and the R3 MF, those are higher than the typical. In fact, the 24 units per acre is approximately 33% increase in density for the R4 underlying zoning, and the R3 multifamily, them asking, 12 units per acre, that's like a 50% increase in the density. Staff does recommend, and the residential development is for the single family. That is going to be just your typical R3 single family, so they're looking at 3.78 units per acre. So the density for the multifamily should be 24 units per acre, the maximum, and 12 units per acre for the R3 MF. As far as open space, they'll need to provide a full landscaping plan with each large scale development. That will include 15% open space for each of the commercial spaces. So we had talked about every time one of these comes in, when we do the large scale development, it would have to include 15% green space. Now for the residential, they are accounting for the green space for the residential portions of this. And the total residential that includes multifamily is 50.25 acres. So that would require a minimum of 12.56 acres of green space for the 25%. They are providing 14.76, which is 28.4% for the residential. And like a lot of them that we've seen, there is the obligatory, of course, giant power line easement through there. But we did ask that when they figured their open space, that they could only account for 50% of that space that's under a power line in the figure. So it's not, a 1-for-1. We're doing all this green space. Oops, there's power line overhead. So they are just counting the space that's outside of those areas. And also they're providing a 7.76, 7.26, thank you. Park that would be dedicated to the city that's there in that area. So for the commercial, as they come in, there's a total of 44.06 acres of commercial. So that would be an additional that they would have to provide. Of course, it would not be in total, but if all of them put together, it'd be 6.61 acres of green space. That would have to be provided total with all of those. And in your report, you do have their breakdown of the Pocket Park green space table that includes the total area of that green space, the area that's in the detention or easement area, and the amount that they are actually including in that. So of course, our recommendation for you guys is all future non-residential development run a minimum of 15% green space. I know this one's really long. I'm sorry, y'all. And for landscaping, we have in here that any landscaping, especially for commercial and the multifamily, they follow the typical street trees of the 1 tree per 25 linear feet. And screening, would have to follow the residential compatibility between any of the commercial and residential developments. And again, like I had stated earlier, that they would have to meet the landscape requirements, either the draft or the approved whenever it is approved in the middle of this process. Then as far as parking, they will follow whatever the city code currently is for each of the different types of developments. And I included in there, that's just the typical PUD recommendations for parking. But then also for commercial and other non-residential, no more than 50% of the off-street parking area for the entire property shall be located between the front facade within the front yard of the principal building and the primary abutting street. So we don't want all of the parking in the front for the commercial, and that is included in our draft landscape code. Adjacent parking lots shall be linked or shared parking areas provided, which can serve neighboring buildings simultaneously. Shared access between all the commercial developments also, and the exact locations would be up to you guys to decide as the planning commission. The multifamily, for the R3 multifamily, we do recommend 2 covered and 2 uncovered parking spaces per dwelling unit. At least 22 deep driveway with ability to park 2 cars side by side. And then for the multifamily zone development, want 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit, and up for you guys to decide tonight, so that way we could provide the developer and the engineer with the extra number that would be required for guests and clubhouse. Because they will have a clubhouse, and of course, everybody has guests, but we don't. You don't want to have a super abundance of parking, but we want to make sure that there is parking. So I just have the XX on there for you guys to decide the number for guests and the clubhouse. Already went over the proximity to XNA. Like I said, they stated that that would be acceptable in their area. We are also asking that since this is such a large development, it's going to be over a long period of time, that with phase 1 of the project, all of the right of way for adjacent streets be dedicated with that first phase. So that way we'd have everything for South Tycoon and Motley, which would be 50 feet of right of ways. They are major arterials, and Nugget and West Tycoon 40 feet of right of way. So that way we make sure that we have that at. And then, like I said, they are requesting 10 years. That is something you guys could say, I don't know if we want to do that far to this time. You know, how about we say this time and maybe come back later and make sure everything's still going correct. And of course, you know, once it's approved, you would have 1 year to get your preliminary plans, at least for the first phase, approved, and then start construction within a year. You'd have to start back over with all of it. And I think I covered everything. I tried to do it quickly. Sorry, it took a long time. Feel free to question away.
I got one question. You were talking about green space for the commercial. Is there additional green space? Because in the plan, I'm just seeing the residential calculations for the green space over there in the notes. Is the commercial broken down anywhere?
No, that would be done.
Or is
If
that,
they come in, they would each have to provide 15%.
and that's additional, okay, we don't know that those meet that right now, they might have to have more, that's what we're saying.
Correct. So with each of those different commercial ones that come in, if it's the entire strip across West Tycoon, that they come in with that all at once, they would have to do 25% green space with their large scale development. As each of those come in, the same thing with the event center. Of course, for the storage, we do already have the rules that they have to follow with this, including the conditional use as part of it, but they would still have to do 15% green space. So yes, the calculations currently are just for the residential, multifamily and single family. But it is noted in here that as each of those come through, they will be required to do 15% green space.
And what was the calculation of space outside of easement?
That's,
What we defined last time as usable.
it was
It's over.
7 acres. That's. Let me find my table.
7.26. The public.
No, that's the public park.
Yeah, but that's 7.26. The pocket parks are all within the easement.
No, there's areas that are outside the easements.
That middle.
Yeah, that middle one that's,
But each pocket park has a percentage.
there is a percentage. I mean, there's those that are flat out 100%.
So John,
green space.
You can see, that's all in the top, or
God, he's great up.
table.
I just don't have any, see that far, that's why.
I was like, no.
I think it's a new.
I know it was a whole lot to talk about and a whole,
And what was the justification for the density increase? What was special about those areas that,
The increase, that's, yeah, I mean, that's up to them. As far as I know, there was nothing discussed regarding what would be given in exchange for that
Mhm.
increase.
you see what I'm getting, that's part of our code, right? That if there was an increase in density, then we would
Part
get
of our-
our green code, more green space or whatever we.
draft,
Yeah,
our draft.
Yeah, right now, our code states that it will conform with the zoning. But if they want to request more, then what conditions would require that or allow that?
Go back to the big picture.
What percentage extra? So they give it?
Right now, they're giving
3.4% more.
3% more green space, but 50% more housing.
one of them is going to be dedicated to the city as a public park. Not the little pocket parks, but the actual free, clear.
And the public
Great.
park is 7 acres.
7.26.
From moving people around, the street by the event center. Should it not connect all the way down to Tycoon? Because otherwise people are gonna come off of, South Tycoon and then they have to go all the way down and circle around to get into the commercial, if I'm reading it correctly, is that right? See what I'm talking about?
They could come in South Tycoon and then they could also come in from West Tycoon, go up through the commercial by the park.
Should there be a connector on that side? I mean, a larger connector, I guess, on that side, unless I'm just missing an option there
On which side?
on the right side. Yeah, that would be. Well, this is not, this doesn't say.
I think it's north. and south.
It would be east, yeah. On that east side, so if you leave the, so if you come, south on the event, from the event center, if you keep going south. Does it make sense to make that connector there? And if I'm looking at it correctly, it's not drawn that way. Should that street come all the way through?
Oh, the one directly to the east goes straight through,
Correct.
then it would be too close to the intersection of West Tycoon and South Tycoon.
Yeah, I wonder if you could meander it though.
But you say that.
What's the dimension on this bottom? Oh, bottom, is it 40 acres or is it bigger?
It's 40 acres for that,
Or one big square?
yeah, where the park and the event center and commercial and
So you say that, but then they're gonna want an exit out of the gas station right there, correct?
I think
You're not gonna handcuff that to one entrance to the, yeah.
Right.
yeah, this doesn't show any. This current plan doesn't show where any of the access.
Oh, it does. For the gas station right there, it shows a drive coming out.
I mean, it shows the other.
All of these show drives coming.
Because they should have the shared access.
Yeah. That needs to be limited, and I think wherever you come in east off of Tycoon, you should tie back in to that main east-west road above to be a park. I think this is just schematic though.
I understand. I was just kind of thinking, Does that make sense? So since we're talking about some of the trade-offs, if you will, over where the R3 multifamily and the single family meet over there in Pocket Park 3, you might have to blow it up a little bit. That's in your driving abilities over there, but you blow it up a little bit more, yeah, so
the single family to the west.
so where those two meet, right there at the
Outside the
corner.
easement, that triangle.
So it almost seems like that corner, which would be the multifamily, there's really no buffer there. And a lot of the times when we think about the way that some of these things fit together, it seems like since we're looking at possibly a little bit more space or something like that, I wonder if it makes sense just to make that more of a green space instead of putting a building there, to at least give a buffer between the single family and then that multifamily would be away from it. It at least gives us a little bit of a buffer there and potentially, I understand that you might lose one building, but there's no buffer there at all where you're gonna have multi and single together. And we ideally don't like to do that without some sort of extended buffer, if you will.
I think the green space could be distributed more through the residential side. And then you're also gonna wanna look at how you're getting people to the park, you know?
That was my key about where does the more green space come in, because it looks like that multifamily is just completely cut off from everything you're gonna be using other than that little pocket park. They don't really get much use of green space.
We do also show trail connections throughout this entire thing to connect to itself and to the trails system that you have in place for the area.
You also show it cut off at the on-street parking on the northeast side. Like the sidewalk just stops on that on-street parking right there. Far east green block.
Now, is this the one where they have 6-foot sidewalks except for a 10-foot trail?
I thought they had bigger internal sidewalks.
Yeah, they were doing 10 foot.
Is that what it is?
On all streets?
No, this exterior one looks bigger than the interior.
Yeah.
See this trail through here.
I'm Molly with Odyssey, I'm an engineer. There are 10-foot trails that connect all the residential to the park and then to the adjacent trails that are for your master's trail plan. And those are 10-foot sidewalks around you had said around the parking, on-street parking. We had just narrowed that down, but it's very easy for us to go ahead and throw it onto the park as well. That's mostly schematic, so.
Yeah, I understand. Do you think you could integrate the trail through your pocket parks and somehow try to tie to your public park?
I think that's definitely gonna be the plan, is they wanna do that as an amenity, is to have additional trails through there. It's just there's some wetland features potentially that we're trying to plan for accordingly, so that's kind of dictate what we do, but. I think that'll definitely be one of the amenities they do is a trail and potentially playgrounds and benches, that kind of stuff, some landscaping.
I think we might be looking for that on the PUD approval.
Um,
Something to integrate some green space in that chunk of housing that you have up there that seems a little disconnected from the rest of it.
multifamily,
Yeah, well, yeah, just that whole area up there.
we're trying to be as efficient as possible with that utility easement, taking out how much space of what's buildable.
I know, but you're also asking for a very high increase in density.
Yeah.
I think there's a balance. I think there's a balance somewhere.
Yeah, is there like a certain additional percentage you guys would do that we can be condition of approval?
I don't know.
I wouldn't put a percentage number on it, it's more of the functionality of how usable that space is. I mean, I wouldn't know if there's.
I mean, yeah, we could give you a number, you may not like it. So
Yeah,
I think that's where we're looking for some give and take, and we're definitely looking for, as I pointed out, the one buffer area, that's the biggest one that I saw where there's really no buffer from, that multifamily.
All right.
About Pocket Park 3, right?
Yeah, just talking about the yellow.
The easement, and there's a pond in there that we don't know if it's jurisdictional or not. once we get this is kind of obviously the first step for this developer. So once we get this kind of set, then we'll go through the wetlands feature delineation, all that stuff, and get a little more detail on the actual layout of the utilities and the layout of the residential and if we need to provide like a buffer with a trail between the multifamily and the single family there, that's definitely something I don't think they have an issue with. It's just that we can't really, there's no other space to put those single family homes besides that space, so.
To me, it's not as much a single family, it's the fact that the multifamily is right up against it. We try to look for buffers wherever we're looking at them. So in my mind, that piece of it just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
I think that could be very easily attained with an additional fence or some landscaping even, and like a green space buffer that provides access to that north street. That would kind of function as a separation between the two uses. I don't think that's a significant change by any means. I think that's doable for sure. The additional green space in the multifamily is a bit of a conversation we have to have with the client, obviously.
I think that's a prime spot to potentially have additional park area or something, especially because you're connected to the pocket park. Or maybe there's some kind of use in that corner.
Yeah, what if we bring the single family further south and down around that J? And then take some of that green space that is lost there and distribute it. I think you can do some flip flopping.
Yeah,
And I think maybe if we can carve some off of the 7.26 acre public park and just put it back over with all the housing, I think that would break it up a little bit too.
I don't see any issue with that. Again, the public park is also part of that wetland feature that's going through there. There's a decent sized, like, well-established pond over there that they're gonna try to incorporate into the park. But I don't see if we did it on the north side next to that street, that should be pretty doable. As far as acreage goes on that green space, with the idea that we do redistribute some of it over into the multifamily. Is it an increase from the 25% per code for a PUD, or is it?
I think it would help your case a lot if you're asking for that much increased density.
And I'm just curious, as far as if we were to come in with multifamily and single family residential, that style where it's the connected homes, are there required green space just by right for those uses?
Or just normal single family?
Yeah, okay. So we are providing additional green space with 25% because we are doing the PUD process. So there is some additional green space we are providing. I don't see any issues with us redistributing it and still keeping the same like units. It's just that if we start losing, that's where we're gonna have to have a discussion with the client to get that approved. So.
Well, I understand, but the client has also directed you to ask for pretty heavily increased.
I totally get it. I just.
That us.
In this meeting here is kind of. Yeah.
So in phase one, that's the residential part. How much of the residential is proposed to be constructed in phase one?
We're still determining that, but I think it was about like a quarter of what they're thinking, yeah. And it's just gonna be that small section there in the middle of Nuggets. We'll be kind of doing a quarter back there, building that detention lot as part of phase one. Doing some of those single family and a couple of those multi-family units.
So on the storage unit, you have kind of an indoor in the northwest. What, I mean, you're talking about maximizing space, but half of that lot.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also very conceptual for that. Yeah, they weren't 100% on what they want to do with that just yet, just the general idea. And I think 5 acres was the minimum for the original zoning that we were going for, which was industrial. We've scaled that back so we can probably reduce that lot size. And
What about building materials on the commercial and storage units? We'll discuss that at all.
it's something in the code, right? In the.
It's in there.
Sorry, at least for the storage units, any building facing public right of way should include a facade with varying articulation and architectural finishes such as texture concrete blocks, cement-based stucco, cement-based board, stucco, etc. No masonite, asphalt, exterior wall or roof material, aluminum sheet siding shall be allowed. That's for the
anything.
storage,
Yeah.
because that does require conditional use. I kind of tried to throw
Yeah, and we can,
conditional use things into the PUD. Hence, I had to talk to y'all. about it.
would this still require that conditional use?
It would not require an additional conditional use, that conditional use
Get lumped in?
built into the PUD. That's why I did a specific one that called out storage units in particular.
That's how the. Rose.
Any other questions or comments before we open it up to the public?
The fuel station, that is not being requested as conditional, correct?
I have not received anything on a fuel station.
That's a potential use, not even confirmed.
Okay, so they would have to come back if they want.
Intentional outside, okay. But I was thinking about what the Terra Rose thing.
So anything that wasn't specifically called out in here would require, so say they did want a service station. It's not that corner. I don't see why it would be another corner, but if it's somewhere else, they would have to get a conditional use on top of just a UD.
Makes sense.
Want to go ahead and open it up to the public then? Thank you, guys. So I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
This is John, I motion to open a public hearing, PUD 2303.
Tony, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, we are now open to the public. If you would like to ask any questions, have any comments in regards to the PUD that's been presented before us this evening, what we'd ask you to do is you come to the podium, name and your address, and then any questions or comments that you might have. Looks like you're ready.
Excuse me, my name's Kathy Bush. I'm at 13511 West Tycoon Road. So I'll be right across from all the commercial. I just have some questions as far as it goes regarding utility development that's gonna happen out in that area. Right now, everybody's on propane. Is natural gas gonna come in? What about sewer lines, things along that line? I wanted to find out how many phases there are to this project. In the timelines, kind of like what's first, how long is it gonna take, and so forth, some which I heard that it was gonna be the single family first, but how long is that gonna take? And then are the roads gonna be paved? And if so, I'm at an area where right now there's a ditch down both sides of the road. And if ditches are not on both sides of the road, your guys are gonna flood me out. So, and it's gonna flood my property. And so I'm concerned over that as to what's gonna happen. And then the easement for that with the road, if you expand it, where's the easement gonna come at? Am I gonna lose property or what's gonna happen? I wanted to check and see how the development will affect farms around like me, where I raise animals, where it could be chickens, cows, goats, pigs, whatever. Is that gonna affect anything as to where I'm at now? And then is that gonna affect the zone where I live at?
No, it will remain, you'll remain A1
Okay,
unless you come to us and say, I ought to be the farmer. I want to sell my property and rezone it, but until you do that, you would remain your A1.
okay. I wanted to check on that.
So have your chickens, cows, pigs, horses.
I didn't know if there would be any stipulations with this new area coming in, because I know in some cases there are stipulations that come in and it would prevent me from maybe having cows or a rooster out there that would crow at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Shame.
So I wanted to just kind of double check on some that's my concerns with that area as far as it goes, considering where I live and where I'm gonna be right across from all the commercial and all the stuff. I wanted to make sure that
As the development comes in, they will have to pave those streets. I can't give you a timeline as far as when that will be done. Like I said, they are giving us right of way currently, but as the developments come in, they will have to pave and improve the road. And of course, they can't put any more water on you than what's already there. So they will have to design any drainage.
like something that'll go on the other side of the road to keep it all from flooding over onto me.
Yes.
I think you had one question, the right of way that they give will only be on their half of.
Side, I was asking because that's where the utility poles are too. So I didn't know, are they gonna move the utilities or are they gonna come over to me and say, well, you're gonna lose some of your land?
I don't think they would. I mean, that, they can't just come over and say you're gonna lose some of your land. I don't know the easement situation or the utility situation, but they would be expected to bring. At least water and sewer, and now on gas. We can't tell you if they're gonna come or not.
Okay.
But it shouldn't.
We'll be allowed, like, if they come in with the natural gas and stuff, then would we be allowed to hook into it if we pay whatever the hookup fee may be?
You should be able to.
If it's accessible and available, yes.
Okay. And,
Let me answer the phase question as close as I can. So they have a year to come back and get started, if you will, with everything approved that they want to do. Let's say for phase one. And phase one is the yellow, the center yellow, I'll call it, okay, which is single family. And I think you mentioned, Molly, a couple of
For some multifamily, yeah.
multifamily as well. Then after that, they have a year to start construction. So it could be at least 2 years from when it's approved. For that phase one for them to start. What they're asking for is for the development to be available to them, if you will, or approved for up to 10 years.
right.
And if it wouldn't be finished within that, or there's a phase that needs to start, then they would need to come back to get an extension from the planning commission.
Would we be kind of notified as to when these new phases might start as far as it goes to where I know like, well, commercial's gonna come in right next to me now or?
There,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not anything that's required.
Okay.
Really, right? I mean, because it's,
Every time they come for a development approval, we'll post a sign.
And as,
So there's no finite timeline. I mean, it basically, as you said, as they sell those, they plan on investing in other things going around. So it's
then as they rezone,
market driven.
because everything right now is agriculture, like your property. So they'd have to come in and do rezones. And since you're within 300 feet, now maybe stuff on the north side, it might get a little fuzzy if you would get information. But anything that's pretty much directly adjacent to you, you would be notified that they're rezoning with commercial, single family, multifamily. And then when they do come in with the development plans, subdivision plans, there will be a sign posted out there to let you know. Not a mailing, but there would be a sign, so at least you'd be like, oh, okay, they're doing this now.
Well, that just kind of helps me know how to plan for my area and what's going on and everything too. Thank you.
My name's Don Barnett. I'm at 8111 Nugget Road. Our driveway is just west of the multifamily area that's on the map. I'm concerned about the traffic from a construction point of view. Coming down Nugget Road or going across Motley. Can somebody give me some idea with this first phase where the most of that traffic is going to be?
Not sure they've even gotten that,
yeah.
to be honest with you.
I think we'd be guessing right now if we tried to tell you exactly where that was gonna, I mean, and I don't want to say we're not responsible for it. They will ultimately decide what's best for them in order to get to what they're working on.
The other question I have, I know you mentioned that the Nugget may be possibly paved during this process sometime. Will there be any frontage taken away from my property on the west side? Will it all come
It's
off?
all on,
It's all on them.
And then my last question is, what's the projected square footage of the single family residential units that are being planned?
I don't know that we,
Have that yet?
yeah, I mean, we can't ask for a minimum or a maximum or anything like that. I mean, there's, you know, they have a lot size and there's parameters that what it requires to fit in that lot size. That's really all we can do. We can't say single, multi, or anything like that from a story. We can just approve a single family phasing, if you will.
Okay, well, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Sorry, the heels are loud. Hi, For those of you who don't know me, my name is Olivia Moore. I am the new XNA Public Affairs Manager. So
Ran off.
please don't chase me off. But anyway, so I don't have an address. That's okay. So anyway, I know that there was brief mention about the fact that this new proposed development is in the 55 DNL noise contour, which isn't incompatible with current airport operations. So currently the threshold for DNL levels is 65. However, there have been indications from the FAA when they requested public comment, I think it was a couple months ago, about for a review of the civil aviation noise policy. So a lot of airport planners are expecting that these new or the new DNL noise threshold for airport operations compatibility is going to be lowered. We don't know what it's going to be lowered to. Could be 60, could be 55. We're not sure. But in order to ensure a smooth continuation of this development, we request that the developer be required to give XNA an navigation easement as a condition of approval. Furthermore, I strongly advise that the developer implements sound attenuation measures within residential areas in order to maintain the interior residents under 25 decibels. So that's kind of all I had to say. So if there's anything else I need to do, yep, there it is. So it's on the outskirts right there of the 55. But like I said, there is indication and there's, you know, there's strong indication that it's going to be lowered. We don't know when. Could be tomorrow, it could be in a year. Thank you.
Welcome to the area.
Thank you.
We have supported the navigation easements. I know we have a discussion on it every time, Brian, but it's certainly something that we have supported from a city and from a developer perspective. So I think it's something we can request, right? I mean, we have. The sound barrier type thing, we've not been as supportive of, primarily due to costs and some other things, but we've definitely been in favor of the navigation easement. Does anyone else wish to speak? Have any questions or comments? And last call. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Don, I'll motion to close the public hearing, PUD 2303.
Oh, yeah, second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. First thing is anyone opposed to the 10 years?
So the full build up.
That's on the full build out.
I think it may take that long for the commercial part anyway. Yeah, man.
Let's see. What else? What I was trying to figure out what else Diane wanted us to.
We make note about redistribution of.
Yeah, I think we do need to make note of the redistribution. And again, I'd love to give you a number. I'd love to tell you it's 5% more. I don't know that throwing that number out is the right thing to do. I think it's worthy of a discussion for the redistribution of it, because you might find a better way that we may handcuff you. You might, we give you 3, you might come back and say, well, it's 5, but. So I think just a redistribution of that, we've shared our concerns around that kind of compatibility in that one corner. We understand there's a power line, we understand the pond and some other things. So I think just helping us, you know, think through that, you know, as you guys get a little further into development. But definitely looking for that redistribution if it can happen.
I think that was just for reference. I think Diane had that as a note that we have to meet 25% per phase. So that's, we're definitely gonna meet that either way. We're not gonna phase it out, and I don't think there's any issue with us redistributing it. We've already got it, so.
Was that the only thing that we needed to decide, Diane?
Having the storage conditionally approved. The condition she listed.
I'm okay with it. Is anyone not okay with it, I guess, would be the question. I think it would be a nicer, with the criteria that was listed, it would definitely be a nice facility. I don't think we would change anything, whenever they came in. Is everybody okay with that? So we're okay with it.
Then another one of the items was, I figured out, the number of parking spaces per unit for the multifamily. But I was kind of letting you guys think about as far as how many extra, or should it be, for guests and for a clubhouse. We have, the multifamily R4 MF, 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling. And how many additional for guests and clubhouse?
Is it something that could be looked at? Additional parking with the development plans that would be.
Are you talking specific to the
R4.
multifamily?
Yeah, the right.
Problem I see is there's no parking adjacent or even close, really. You have the clubhouse.
Yeah, I want to see, I can't recommend anything without seeing a design plan. This is kind of exciting. We'll get many guys. We want 10, we want 15. I don't know what's your plan.
I think we talked about that last time too, about what level of detail
Yeah.
we need here. I think they can make it work, but I think there needs to be some work done. What's the,
I don't think you get there before preliminary plot though.
what's the
The zoning guidelines, right?
multifamily? Multifamily?
Okay. Talking about these R3 multifamily or R4 multifamily?
The orange ones on the northwest.
Typical townhouse style, like row homes where you have the driveways up to the garages and then garages, I think is a typical plan for that. I think that Diane listed a couple of requirements for that and they will do their very best to make that work.
So there's 4 units per
Structure.
structure. You have a driveway and a garage on each one.
That is what I have seen typically, yeah. Yeah, usually a standard 20 foot or in this case 22 foot and then up a garage, so. Again, they'll have a lot more specifics as they get into the unit design and all that other stuff, but yeah. And then as far as the parking for the apartments, again, that's also very schematic at this point, and I think that there's a lot that can be done in a large scale process to confirm exactly what we need to do there. Yeah. This is definitely an unusual PUD, not probably the typical one you see, it's more of a master plan. We just wanted to get some feelers out, see what you guys thought of this, and so they can get moving on their closing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think we can figure the final parking out whenever they do come in. I think we're okay with that. We obviously have our guidelines and ordinances whenever it comes to the design of it.
Sometimes those are a little heavy.
Correct.
That's why I said the 1.5, because in the PUD currently, it states 2 parking spaces per unit.
And
I think that's high.
That is high. I think that's.
the event center, I'm just talking out loud. The event center is not going to be used 24/7, 365 days a year.
You're never gonna pack it.
And there are parking spaces there. And if the connectivity is right, it is far away, don't get me wrong, but from the R4 multifamily, that may work for a little bit of overflow in a way if it's people can safely get to where they need.
And also same thing with, the adjacent commercial.
Correct.
Sometimes that's not gonna be 24/7 operations either, so they could share some.
Correct.
Then are you looking at the same kind of things for the R3 multifamily? Because we did recommend the 2 covered, 2 uncovered.
I think we would want to have if it's a larger unit, then I think we would want to have the availability we don't want people parking on the street there. Yeah, we wouldn't want parking that's adequate because both of those streets are gonna be very busy. We don't want people parking on the street.
Molly, any thought about, or why are the storage units on the corners? I don't know how far into zoning we want to get here, but it's kind of associated, kind of not, right?
The intent there is to put them on the major street corners and to provide buffer between residential streets. So those, I think the south and, well, the east and north are major arterials, and then the west are collectors. So the idea is just, you know, those heavy use intersections, we put a heavier use there to kind of provide some buffers, some natural buffer between that and the residential uses. That's kind of the intent we're going with there.
Would there be any appetite for maybe moving one?
Again, that's
The
very
southwest,
conceptual. I think that it's gonna kind of depend on the demands in the area. Obviously, the intent would be to have those residential customers directly into it, but
they still would be, like, you could swap the northern one to the east and put the commercial on the corner.
yeah, I think the intent there was mainly just putting those heavier uses. I don't know if there's anything tying it directly to those corners or shifting it around.
I think that would also be better for your commercial as far as marketability.
Providing that commercial, moving across.
We can definitely look at that and go to zone everything out for sure.
Or even moving the indoor unit down with the other one and making commercial up there.
was
It's
thinking-
definitely one of those things.
North to the bottom, and then just with the commercial. up there.
Have to feel out as they go type of thing and see what's plausible for what the demand is, but
Thank you.
That get us through everything.
I think so. I think it's just important to note for the record that because this hasn't been rezoned yet, it's important to say that approving this PED doesn't by any means mirror you guys to approving the rezones when they come.
It's all contingent upon the reason.
Yes.
Did we get through the whole gas station conversation earlier? Because it's drawn on the plan that I have, so.
I think because they said that they aren't specifically requesting that, they need to come back with a conditional use for that use.
Okay. Just making sure this,
The only one that's,
I'll try to remember this one.
yeah, the only one that's condition, the only one that covers the conditional use is the storage, not.
If there are no additional questions or comments, then I would entertain a motion for the PUD 2303, the Tycoon Master Development as a mixed use.
I'll give it a stab. It's gonna be a long one. This John, I'll motion to approve PUD 2303. Contingent upon with consideration of redistribution of green space as we discussed. And contingent upon staff findings on the parking and storage usages. And any further usage contingent upon rezone.
In your build out.
I think that was part of the request, right? And 10-year full build out.
Oh, yeah, second.
Motion and a second, if you'll do a roll call for me, please, since it was a vote.
Joe Engel,
Yes.
Jerry Harris,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
Devin Murphy,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
Jeff Safarth.
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2101. The Pine Space 4 1-year extension of preliminary approval.
There was Sugar Mitchell Homes. I'd like to start off and say it's good to see a Braves fan on the commission.
Yes, sir.
So we are here to request an extension on the approval of the approved Pines Fork preliminary plat. We are held up just by one on the ADH sewer capacity issue with the Allen Road lift station. Other than that, we're ready to rock and roll. So we're just requesting another. I think it's a year was the max. And so we went ahead and requested that.
Can you give us an update on the ADH review?
Last we know, there's been one round of comments submitted back from the state, ADH. And then those have been theoretically addressed and resubmitted to to ADH as of last week.
What are they asking you to do? Size basically determine capacity at the lift station?
I believe so. Yeah, that's been something that we haven't had any insight into. We just know the basics of the comments that have been passed. But yeah, it's the essentially capacity for that lift station, those areas in front of the lift station.
Diana's staff opposed?
No.
Anything we need to know other than that?
Other than there's lots of other projects that are in the same boat as they are, not just.
Yeah, it's a city
project.
project. Not a Ben project.
No, I know. I was just trying to get the.
Any questions or comments from any of the
I think we're in
commissioners?
more in-depth update about the situation.
Well, I heard today that they expect ADH to give approval within the next couple of weeks. And then they would be releasing the projects. They wouldn't be able to connect onto the sewer until the improvements were made. And they expect those by the end of the year.
I think this would be maybe an important update for us all at some point in time. If Malcolm or whoever could come talk to us about it.
Right.
It sounds like it's affecting.
You're gonna have a lot of projects going up on a year.
Yeah.
There are no other questions or comments, so I will entertain a motion for the 1-year extension for subdivision 2201, the Pines Phase 4.
Tony, I make a motion to approve a 1-year extension of preliminary approval for subdivision 2201, the Pines Phase 4.
Second. Motion and second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is subdivision 2216, the reserve at Wolverine, preliminary plat. It's at the corner of Cutbirth Lane and Wolverine Drive, 69 lots, 27.95 acres. It is zoned R2. Are you?
And Cole with Sanford Engineering in this project. So the main differences for this one, main components are the improvements along Wolverine, trail, additional storm sewer that goes in for that area. Everything else is what you see from the developments, in regards to street sections and the residential lots.
Caleb?
Alrighty, so this is a 27-acre subdivision. I counted 58 buildable lots on the plat. It's just northwest of Bentonville West High School. And it's surrounded by other single-family developments such as West End Acres, Diamond Estates, and Maple Estates. It was previously split in July of 2022 and then rezoned. All comments have been addressed from staff. Water and sewer will tie into the lines going through Maple Estates. The parcel isn't located within a floodplain. There is a riverine that runs north to east. And then there's a detention pond and then another man-made pond. Per the project engineer, no formal wetlands assessment was done. However, there was a discussion with the Corps of Engineers and there wasn't any concern about having wetlands on the area, and there is a note on the plat that no wetlands exist. There's an existing detention pond that will be modified to accommodate phase 1 of the development with plans to further modify the detention basin when phase 2 is designed. In terms of the adjacent street agreement, Cutbirth Lane is a minor collector. No public street access is proposed onto Cutbirth Lane with this phase, but there will be fire access to the intersection of Cutbirth Lane. And then that intersection will be constructed as well. So they'll be giving 40 feet of right of way and then paving the intersection of Cutbirth and Wolverine. For the Wolverine Drive, it's a major collector, so they'll be giving 40 feet of right of way along there. They'll be widening it to do the road widening, 2 feet curb and gutter, and then that 10-foot trail that was discussed. And it was mentioned that with phase 2, the Cutbirth Lane improvements will be required. And so the subdivision will have access from Wolverine Drive, and then a gravel drive is connected to Cutbirth as a fire access lane. And then when this parcel was split, there are 2 parcels to the west that lost connection, like direct connection. So they'll be giving an access easement and making sure that they still have access through that fire lane to get out. And then, as he mentioned, there's that 10-foot trail along Wolverine, and then they've got street trees along Wolverine.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I have one, and Dan, maybe it's a error on, maybe the numbers got flipped, but it's showing a top of pond at 1330 for the 100-year water surface at 3171.
Yes, the top of pond, like the top of pond berm bank. I could add an extra descriptor term for top of bank.
Right, but that's lower than your 100-year water surface elevation.
So this is for, what's unique about that detention pond is you've got the pass through and the main. And so that top of is like the overflow top. And so that 100 water surface is for like that total watershed, not necessarily the detention pond for it. So it's detention pond is a two-stage. It captures the on-site retainings, and then as the off-site water that flows through it tops over a controlled width, like a broad crested weir for that segment.
Okay. I mean, it still seems by the numbers, it's gonna be almost 2 feet deep at that point. I understand your houses are 38, I think you have a finished floor, but if Alan has reviewed it, I'll trust Alan if he doesn't have any comments on it. Does Alan have any outstanding comment?
Didn't he approved it? They even talked about that there's an easement running along lot 58 that goes into the berm of the pond and then down Wolverine. We discussed having them shift it, but Alan and Anthony and Malcolm, they all got together and said that moving the easement wouldn't protect the pond in the end, so they left it as is.
So do they need a utility easement through there? Or franchise utilities? Is there a utility easement along the bank of the pond?
Yes. It's like it stops.
It stops, so we can do either one. I just know that the city water utilities did not want their easements going through that slope of the bank, so we trimmed it back. But some of the other franchise ones, for the final plat, we can certainly have something there for them if they want.
Okay, none of them will be in the interior slope of the pond, correct?
None of the Centerton water utilities.
No franchise utilities in the
No,
interior bank of the pond.
No.
The slope,
if you continue it down, it looks like it's on the outside of the top,
it's on the outside.
Correct.
but currently there isn't one there.
We trimmed it back to make sure there was, her request that there was nothing, no easements outside that right of way, so they'd have to go interior to route to the future phase.
That's good.
I just had a question regarding the placement of the sidewalk because we were moving the sidewalks. Do 5-foot green space, 10-foot sidewalks, then your green space, to put your trees. This one's not done that way, so
This one didn't get changed.
I was just verifying that's what Public Works wanted and it's not the.
Any additional questions or comments? If not, then I will entertain a motion for subdivision 2216, the reserve at Wolverine, preliminary plat.
I'll make a motion to approve the subdivision 2216, the reserve at Wolverine.
John, second. Motion and a very quick second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you. Good luck. All right, next on the agenda is subdivision 2303, Featherston Village West, preliminary plat and plans. Southeast corner of Kimmel Road and Daisy. It is zoned R3 single family with an approved PUD, 37.68 acres and 300 lots.
Hi, I'm Jake Jacobs, Bates and Associates. I'm here for any question that you have.
Kayla?
so this one's on the southeast corner of Kimmel Road, adjacent to Featherston Village, phase 1 and 2, as well as across the street is Blossom Hills and Southwinds phase 1 and 2. There is an approved PUD for this one that was approved February 21st of this year, and that PUD allowed variances in the minimum lot size, lot width, setbacks, and the parking requirements. There are some remaining staff comments regarding streetlight placements, some labeling corrections, and then street section profile, street agreement. We have them all worked out, we just need to get updated copies of those. So in terms of the variances that were granted by the PUD, the lot sizes were approved to be 2,800 square feet instead of 6,000. The minimum width was 35 instead of 60, and then the setbacks are listed in your packet for you. I will. For the PUD, the maximum density was set to no more than 304 units. Right now, they've got 300 units, which is a density of 8.63 units per acre. For the PUD, they were required to have 15% green space. They did some moving around and got us 23%. So we're getting a little bit more there. In terms of parking, this was a discussion that we heavily talked about where parking. So there's off-street parking. Every single family home has off-street parking for 2 vehicles. And that includes parallel parking spaces on both sides of track C4 and the south side of track C3. The north side of track C3 will be marked as on-street parking, and then on-street parking is not allowed anywhere else. Utility services. Water is available along Kimmel, Daisy, and Wolfpack Road, so they've got their pick. And then sanitary sewer is available. No portion of the property is located within the flood zone. A wetlands assessment was submitted. There are wetland areas, but they're not jurisdictional, and they're also not part of the waters of the continental US or whatever it was. There is a wet detention pond proposed on track C1, and the drainage that's been proposed has been approved by staff. The adjacent street agreement, so a traffic study was provided to show the impact of the 300 home development. The 5-year projected traffic assumes that Kimmel and Womack Road will be a 4-way stop. The level of service of C. If the intersection remains 2 ways, the level of service would be F, unacceptable. Daisy Road, 35 feet of right of way was previously dedicated in 2019, so an additional 5 feet needs to be dedicated to meet the required 40 feet of right of way for the master street plan. The improvements will include 24-foot pavement with no curb and gutter, street trees, street lights, and then last I saw, they talked about maybe doing a 20-foot ditch, but we've asked them to only do a 15. Said he was okay with a 20 as long as it was a good slope. So I don't know what they've decided yet on that.
And we can make 15 work.
Okay, cool. So that fits with the section that's called out normally. Womack Road, 30 feet of right of way was dedicated with Featherston Village's phases 1 and 2 in February. So an additional 40 feet will need to be dedicated with this development. No improvements will be needed because they built it out with the other phases. But they will be adding a 10-foot sidewalk on the west side of Womack, street lights and street trees. Kimmel Road, they'll be dedicating almost 50 feet where the intersection is to match what we built out for Featherston phases 1 and 2. And then as it goes west, they'll go back down to that required 40 feet. And then the improvements will include any required street lights, street trees, and a 6-foot sidewalk. And there is the McKissick Spring Loop that runs along Kimmel Road, but because they're having to give that additional right of way along Kimmel to make that intersection what it needs to be for the level of service, we've recommended doing a 6-foot sidewalk and then the city coming to build the other half of it. Street trees, in the PUD, it was said that the street trees should be planted 1 per 20 linear foot, but after seeing the plans, staff was okay with doing 1 tree per lot, which I think was like 1 tree per 35 linear feet. So based on the trees that they were proposing, that was a better spacing. And then for the PUD, trees and shrubs were required within the green space areas and the detention lot, so that was being met. And then they are providing soft surface walking trails, seating, barbecue areas and a children's play area as required by the community.
What's going on with the street improvements, the level of service F, if everything remains the same?
I think it was built out to be a four-way stop, right, with Featherston 1 and 2, so they're matching that on this side of Womack and Kimball to make sure that it's a four-way. So that's why they're having to give that extra 10 feet to make that intersection wider.
Okay, I got you.
That's a left. Go ahead. It has a left turn included in it.
Gotcha. And because of that, we didn't ask for the full trail portion along the frontage?
Right.
But that's a direct impact from their development.
We're also. All Daisy. Hitting all of Daisy and we're matching what was on the other side with Featherston phase 1 and 2.
What do you mean you're matching?
It's also a 6 foot, actually, I think it's smaller. It looks like it's 5 feet sidewalk for Featherston phase 1 and 2. Along Kimball
I think it was supposed to be 6.
with the 6, it probably.
It was matched.
Because I'm just looking at what it is here.
Then, because Kissing is right there.
If they're providing enough right of way and the city would come along and widen.
Daisy would provide 10 foot.
Well, Jeff just said you're paving the whole thing, right?
24 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
You're not doing curb and gutter. Isn't it equitable? Didn't they look at that? Or they're just doing a full half section?
So the idea was that, we just did our half section. There's not enough room for two-way traffic.
Sure, I understand that, yeah. How much was there a price increase on the two options?
Oh. I don't think we put those numbers together. We just worked it out with Alan and we all thought that that was the best solution to have two-way traffic.
And then in the middle of your subdivision, you have ADA ramps just dumping out to nothing on the other side. If you go to one of the exterior streets.
I think that was a comment that we had addressed previously there. If there was one of them that we missed, we're happy to put an ADA.
Just wondering, you're dumping people out into the road, but where are they? They're not crossing the street because is there sidewalk on the other side of the road?
What are you talking about? Yes.
Anywhere where those straight sidewalks dump out on those north-south streets?
Oh, I'm talking about into phase 1.
I'm talking about any of those sidewalks along your streets aren't named here, so I don't know what street it is. You got your two western street that goes north-south, eastern street that goes north-south on the perimeter. Is that a?
Inside the subdivision.
Yeah, is that not a sidewalk behind those houses?
Oh, that trail right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just something that we haven't looked at yet. We
had that phase 1 and phase 2. I think it's a way to get to the park. And we did it before. You can go without. Because there's not sidewalks in the front, you go to the back and then you walk down to where it's supposed to go to the middle. They're all funneling to the interior.
Gotcha. I didn't know if that was
That was the
ADA issue, just dumping somebody out in the road with nowhere to get. I imagine it is.
Yeah, sidewalks are long.
vicinity is those green spaces.
You see what I'm saying?
No, can
You don't?
no, maybe I
See those sidewalks going behind the houses?
He's talking about right here.
That's a ramp out.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go on the other side of it.
Yeah, I think the intent is to go the other way.
Across there.
Is it private?
It's all private.
Don't gotta know any yet.
What? The sidewalk. Or just to get to the park.
Oh, like an easement? Yeah.
Sidewalk's public. Get to the park, it's some gravel. Like we did in phase 1, phase 2. Sidewalk.
Y'all might wanna. Staff might wanna look at that.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It just goes nowhere.
And then are those intersections ways where the I understand what it's for. I get it. I just don't know that you can do that. On the intersections with the meandering trail where they actually do cross the road and go to something else on the other side of the road. Are those four-way stops? West or east, anywhere? The exterior part of the subdivision?
Like follow that trail.
There you go, yeah. Is that a controlled intersection?
I don't think it's a four-way stop. Can you pull up our signing and lightage plan?
No, it's I think it's just a three-way, because I know we did want stop signs directly off of Daisy Road, that little tiny stuff. It should be a three-way.
When we were going through this with Alan, we were worried about traffic, some problems if we had a four-way next to that intersection.
I get that. I'm just worried about somebody
Like it.
heading east, somebody turning south and just getting slammed. But something else staff should probably take a look at. Other than that, I'm good.
Any other questions or comments? Good. All right. With that, I would entertain a motion for subdivision 2303. Featherston Village West, plat and plans, with some remaining staff comments, I think, and clarification on those couple things.
Oh, this is yours.
This is mine.
You know, the ADA requirements that you.
I'll make a motion to approve subdivision 2303, Featherston Village West. With the items that we brought up tonight, the sidewalks, no ADA access on the other side of the road. And then the intersections being controlled for pedestrian traffic that's routed there.
John, second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? You guys, good luck.
But just to be clear, that was a condition, those two were conditions upon our approval. And it was make that intersection a four-way stop.
I didn't say you had to make it. I think staff just needs to evaluate that. I'm not sure that they, I think it's gonna be Alan and, yeah.
Anthony, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda is development 2212 Skylight Mini Storage preliminary plans. This is at 301 Greenhouse Road. It is zone C2. It's 5 acres, and we'll also, after this, we'll come back and we'll visit the track split that was under old business. We went ahead and just moved it to now, so we'll go ahead and go through the development plan first.
All right, I'm Patrick Foy with Half Associates. As far as the development plans, answering questions, most of my comments and whatnot's gonna be on the adjacent street agreement on the track split. So whenever you guys would like to go over that. Spill, other than that, if we're just talking large scale, we don't really have much on the large scale.
Ayla, do you want to go through staff?
Okay, so as we know good and well, this has a concurrent track split. And that's to divide the mini storage, the retail, and then the undeveloped land to the south, all into Great Brook. Does have a conditional use to allow for the storage that was approved in January and then ended April. This development proposes 5 buildings, one of which is an office and storage, and then the other ones are all outdoor storage. So there are some remaining comments regarding the dumpster enclosure and making sure that those aren't. And then we just recently got an updated adjacent street agreement, which we'll go through. So for utilities, Centerton Water is available on Greenhouse Road, and there's a sanitary sewer line that runs directly through this parcel south. There's 2 detention ponds proposed, and that's to serve the retail and the warehouse developments. The drainage has been approved by Alan. For the adjacent street agreement, Greenhouse Road has a planned expansion being worked on. it's a joint effort between Bentonville and Centerton. Our most recent timeline estimates construction to be complete by 2027. We just recently took a look at the 30% plans to inform this project on what we need to ask for right of way and utility easements. So Greenhouse Road is a major arterial with a planned right of way of 100 feet per the master street plan. 50 feet of right of way will be dedicated, and that's what's also needed for the expansion. A 16-foot utility easement will be dedicated along lot 1, which is the retail, and then 26 feet will be dedicated along what will be lot 2, which is the undeveloped, mostly floodplain lot. And then because additional right-of-way and easements are being dedicated with this project, staff has requested that the fee in lieu for the street improvements for these lots be waived. Kimmel Road is a major collector with a planned right-of-way of 80 feet for the master street plan because of the offset with the roundabout that's going down at that corner. The engineer for the Greenhouse Road expansion project has said we need 45 feet of right-of-way and then a 30-foot utility easement. And then they asked at the corner of the Kimmel Road intersection, there's another easement down there, so they're giving that corner up as right-of-way. Additionally, as a part of this agreement, a note has been added that public access from Purple Bench to Greenhouse Road will be required with the development of lot 2. Shared access drive is currently proposed between lots 1, 3, and 2. That will eventually turn into the public access to connect to Purple Finch with the development of lot 2. There's no wetlands on the property, but the parcel is located within a flood area, and a floodplain permit application has been submitted. It is pending review, so this approval will be contingent on the approval of that floodplain permit. A photometric plan was provided with the preliminary plans and approved by staff. In terms of landscaping, parking lot islands have been provided along the frontage of building 1 with trees and understory shrubs as required by the amended conditional use. The conditional use did state that an irrigation system would be required, and right now in their plans, they have a note that says an irrigation system shall be installed by others. So I don't know if you guys want to further go down and say that needs to be done with this one. Street trees can't be currently placed along Greenhouse Road due to that expansion. It doesn't make sense to plant the trees and then rip them back out. So for your consideration, you might recommend having them be planted with phase 2 with the retail, or asking for a cash bond for the street trees. In terms of landscape screening, a buffer is provided along the north and west property lines to screen adjacent developments. Because there's a proposed detention pond along the south, no trees were placed. Alan said no trees in the pond. So those were moved throughout the property where they could be fit. For the conditional use, a physical barrier was required, so a 6-foot privacy fence is proposed along the northwest and south sides of the development. And as I said, there are remaining comments regarding the material of the dumpster enclosure, and then whatever comments you guys have on the adjacent street agreement.
So what was the rationale on waiving the greenhouse requirement or? Greenhouse,
So they're not required to give us all of the right of way for a whole 20 acres along Greenhouse and Kimmel. So the rationale was get all of the right of way for the Greenhouse expansion project. Waive the fee instead.
There's a large amount of right of way on that corner.
offset because of the,
You're that right, the roundabout.
floodplain, isn't it floodplain?
Yes, but there is a corner of usable land there. Do we have this on the track split?
Yeah. Everything is on the track split.
Can you pull in?
Maybe we should have done that.
I was gonna ask if.
Yeah, the track split might-
It was.
Matter, so, yeah, I was thinking.
Old business.
It was the first item on the agenda.
Yeah, it was.
You have an extra set. You have an extra set.
You need a set of pants?
Joey's, I
got it on my phone.
His iPad died.
Oh, no.
Plugged in.
You can see him on his phone.
Was it the first one?
Okay.
I think he's one.
Let's start. Thank you.
There's the
All right.
tripod, and then there's.
Thank you, Jeff.
I have copies of that track. Anybody else?
This right here.
Oh.
I've been stealing from Jeff on that. I've been cheating off his paper on that.
No, my paper.
Is this, do you have the right of way plan? Greenhouse Road?
No.
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I was just, this isn't, I mean, if that's what staff told you was, okay.
Yeah, there was an extensive meeting after the greenhouse. We had Alan, Anthony, the mayor, me, Lorraine, and then the whole staff come into the meeting to talk about.
Lorraine, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Oh, yeah, you can see it.
That's what you.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. If, this is just a question for staff, but was there an analysis done on the cost of the right-of-way dedication versus the road improvements?
So they did give us the fee in lieu. It was almost 80,000 for the fee in lieu that they would have given for in front of lot 1. I don't think we did the exact math on it, but Alan said it was
Okay.
about similar.
I was just making sure we were.
Yeah, it was considered. It's I think it was like 2.79 acres of right of way that they're giving. And then we got the all important connection from Purple Finch to Greenhouse solidified. So that felt like a big one for us.
That's where I'm wanting to talk a little more on that. Yeah, it's sorted out, but we'll go ahead. The developer, we put a note on the plat, the track split, that says that we will work through public access with lot 2 development. Lot 2 has a bunch of encumbrances, so he's wanting to be able to work through staff. We've met with staff on possibly doing like reduced sections and work. We know what that development looks like. The plans to do a PUD of that development. And when we do that, possibly look at setback reductions or maybe do something creative with the access. So my thought was do an access easement, a public access easement where I'm not dedicating 50-foot of right of way and still provide a public access that gets you the greenhouse for Purple Finch. So trying to figure out a good way to document that in this package. That way, when we get to lot 2, it's known that it might not be a public right of way.
Why are you requesting a reduction in right away?
So
Just floodplain?
the floodplain floodway, there's a sewer easement, there's a bunch of encumbrances on that lot 2 that we would like to get some sort of flexibility. We're not dedicating an additional 50-foot on top of all that, where it pretty much renders that lot 2 useless. So
Yeah. Well, the developer was the one who developed everything to the west too, right? That stubbed that road out.
That's correct.
Yes. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know that I would personally support the reduction in right away. Maybe there's something, creative that can happen. Cause I think we tried to get this worked out on the front end with this development, right? Yeah, and it just kept getting pushed and pushed. So that's where I'm at on.
Yeah, this was something we talked about extensively when we came to this agreement, and staff was very opposed to making any sort of agreement that this wasn't gonna be public right of way. And we determined that it was something that would be better settled when we saw some kind of plan to determine if we could still get what we needed while allowing it to not be public right of way, but still have public access. So,
It's one guy though, that's just mine.
And it was always
I would-
told to the developer that that would be a public road connection from that.
But
I remember talking about connecting Purple Finch extensively.
I think that's where, as far as the note on the plat saying we'll discuss public access across lot 2 when it develops. Again, thinking that the intent of connecting Purple Bench to greenhouse could be achieved through an access easement, a public access easement. That way we don't have to do the 50-foot right of way. So that'd be the compromise. You'd still get the access, it's just not gonna be built to a full street section with 5-foot sidewalks or 6-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street. And
I think that's kind of important with the greenhouse improvements.
so I think depending on the development that occurs there, that there's still gonna be a pedestrian connection through there. We might not need a street section of a local street through there. If we provide a 24 to 26 foot to be fired, it'd still have two-way access there. I think we could achieve all the intents of what the city wants through a public access easement without dedicating 50 foot that then puts building setbacks on top of that. So that's where the
That's what you're trying.
Yeah.
It's the setbacks off to the right.
setbacks pretty much kill that property.
My position, my position during the discussion was, it would need to be, it was always intended to have a public street. We can work with them on the setbacks, depending on their.
Yeah, maybe that's something.
You know, so, as long as there's no parking on the side, we could even, reduce that to a 28-foot back a curve or something. But it was not a commitment that I think any of the staff felt comfortable in making, but we do want to note on the plat that there would be future public access provided. And then when we go into the development phase, then
Not determining how we get that, but I
Exactly.
think that's fair. Where's that note mentioned?
It's note number 7 on the plat.
On the cover sheet. It's also stated in the adjacent street agreement as well.
I would like to add, this is a maps and I'm a developer for this. We are not opposed to give public access, anything like that. It's just to make it, since because of the flood zone, we have a limited space available. So and by losing a lot of right of way, so we have very limited area to play with. So that's why then what is a way we can work together, where it is useful for the city as well as where we can still develop something there.
It's just a hard sell because, you own the whole parcel before, right? We've been carving off chunks and now we're down to the very last bit with the floodplain and now we're squeezed for space. So that was my point.
That is true. We built the other 2 subdivisions, but at the time, we never had any intention to extend this to the anything further. Obviously, things change as time flies, even though we never planned, but things could still happen.
Finch got stubbed out for a connection.
So yes, I went back and then checked with the engineer who helped with that. So that looks like at the time the discussion was need second access for the fire in future, but doesn't need to be the public road. So that's the way, that's how the discussion was. I was not part of the discussion, but that's how discussion was ended. So that's why we are still okay to entertain that. To give somehow a second access to the substation. As long as we are okay either way, as long as we are not losing a lot of land because we have limited space in the house.
The understanding is that we are requiring that there will be public access, but we can get creative on how we get there. When we cross that bridge, when you see the PUD.
Take us back to the development plan where we started. Are you good with the dumpster enclosure?
Yes, I've actually already sent the staff.
Just yet.
I have copies if y'all want to see it by chance.
It's gonna be a hard, it meets whatever they were asking for.
Yeah, the block wall, metal panel matches the building.
Perfect. back to the development. Are there any questions or comments, additional questions or comments in regards to that? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for development 2212, the Skylight Mini Storage preliminary plans at 301 Greenhouse Road.
Just a quick question, needed to figure out the street trees. Put them with phase two or ask for a. Cash fall on, say we defer them.
I'm good with deferral. Is anybody opposed to deferring?
Until this, the streets there, you really don't know where to put them.
Right.
That will put the burden on that developer of that piece, though.
Right.
What is it?
The street trees, we're asking to defer those until the development of the southern property because of the improvements that are coming through there. So you don't plant them and then they get ripped out.
She's saying that puts the burden on whoever develops that second property. Now go back and put trees along the north property.
Or that piece.
It's a burden on.
The street.
Right.
Yeah, but
That'll be featured. Yes.
Okay, so it's not really the southern piece.
No, it's the lot,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, phase two.
phase two.
For me. I just wanted everyone to understand that.
So like mini storage, there's gonna be a fence to the east. The green.
Yeah.
Never the street trees.
Yes. Thanks. Anything else? If not, then I would entertain a motion.
This is John, I wish to approve development 2212, Skylight Mini Storage. I prescribe with those comments regarding connection and easement for Finch.
Second. Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Now, we table, oh, Pat, we're gonna go through the. You can run, but you can't hide. Unfortunately. So we tabled the track split, right? So we entertain a motion to bring the track split 22-23 for the greenhouse mini storage back to the table.
John, a motion to reestablish track split 22-23 to the table.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? So we had some discussion during the development phase. Are there any other questions or comments? I think we're aligned with the future from a public access, if you will, but creativity within the space. I think we are all aligned with that. If that works. Okay. Were there any other questions or comments in regards to the track split? If there are not, then I would entertain a motion for track split 22-23 Greenhouse mini storage at 30 Greenhouse Road.
I'll motion to approve track split 22-23 Greenhouse Mini Storage.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? Thanks, Patrick. All right, next on the agenda is development 2301 Storage World preliminary plans. This is at 11301 West Arkansas Highway 72. Is zone C2. It's 22.31 acres.
I'm Jake James with Bates and Associates. I'm here.
Kayla,
I'm tired of hearing me talk yet. Okay,
how do you want me to answer that?
And all of them.
smile and nod. Smile and nod. Okay, so this parcel was previously part of Lightning Park. Rezoned from A1 to C2 in 2017, and it has a conditional use that was approved in November of 2022 to allow for storage. So this property is directly adjacent to the rest of Lightning Park, which is zone C2 and A1. Nearby development subdivisions include Tuscany subdivision and Sienna Estates. The development includes 12 storage buildings, 1 office building, and 2 mixed-use buildings for a total of 15 buildings. Drinking water is available along Highway 72. The property is currently on a septic system. They'll have to get ADH approval if they want to stay on that. There is a dry detention pond proposed in the southeast corner of the property. The proposed drainage has been approved by staff pending one minor recommendation from Alan. Wetlands are present on the property. They did give me a wetlands assessment. No jurisdictional wetlands on the property, and it's not part of the water of the continental US or whatever that very long title is. There's no floodplain. So on the master street plan, there is a major collector proposed along the west side of this development. So this development will include that, which is 80 feet of right of way, which includes 38 feet of pavement back a curve and a 10-foot trail along both sides of the road. We did discuss having them only build it on the east side of the development and then having the next developers on the west build the other side of the trail so that the full burden of the road is not on this developer. So you guys can decide what you want, but that's Alan's recommendation. Highway 72 right of way will be dedicated. We need 50 feet of right of way, which they've since corrected on the track split that you guys just approved, and they need to correct on their plans. Highway 72 is already widened. However, the developer will be constructing a 10-foot trail on their side of the road. These are recommended approval of the adjacent street agreement. And they make sure their 50-foot of right of way is clarified all the way through. Parking, per the code, they only need 93 parking spaces. Right now, they have 114, which is important for the next part. Lighting was placed every 300 feet as well as at every intersection. A 6-foot privacy fence is proposed between the office and mini storage areas and along the east, west, and south property lines. So lots of barrier. In terms of landscaping, there were a few things that the condition of use required, which was street trees to be provided along the new major collector and along Highway 72. The conditional use asks that 1 tree be provided every 10 parking spaces and then a maximum of 12 stalls be allowed between islands. Right now, there is a building that has more than 12 parking spaces in a row. I think they need to get rid of some parking and add some islands, and that would help meet that condition. An irrigation system is being provided for the conditional use. So staff recommends approval contingent on fixing their parking lot islands. Remaining comments are regarding the truck turning pattern. There's still some tight spaces I'm not sure that can actually be made. Labeling and then making sure the adjacent street agreement is correct with the 50-foot of right of way.
We have no issue with any of the conditions of approval.
Right. Glad to hear.
He's a quick one. Is the type parking in the mixed use or in the storage area? I'm trying to figure that out.
There's any parking in the storage.
Eric, can you go back up to that?
He was talking about turning, I think.
That building right there has like 14 or 15 parking spaces in a row with those loading areas. So I think that they need to maybe break that up with a parking lot island.
You guys are good with that?
Yeah, we're fine with that.
Because they have all that parking in the front as well.
He just said all conditions. I was just making sure that.
We can make that work.
Great.
The beauty of going last, you know what's coming.
What about, did you mention turning, you said turning rates?
Truck turning pattern. Maybe you guys can convince me. I'm not an engineer. I don't know about how the trucks can turn. Not that one, the other one. With the storage building, yeah. In between the tight space between the buildings right there.
They're not hitting it.
Do trucks not need to fit between those buildings?
Those are, yeah, I mean, there's.
Between the buildings, it's not really made for big trucks. The path that you go around, the fire trucks can get through there.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I drove by the new one on 72 the other day and guess where a semi was parked?
Right in the middle.
Because they
Those
couldn't,
workers aren't gonna.
because they couldn't get in there.
Yeah.
And we did have another storage facility that we made them do the turning radii, however you want to say it, so that we could understand it. Because it's a true, and you're on, I get that you're gonna be off of a busy highway, but once they get in there on that road, try to get turned around and get back out. I mean, those are the things that we want to make sure work. So
All kinds of area where the big stuff is gonna be. I mean, these are little 10x10 units. I mean, they're not, big trucks aren't gonna be.
How wide is it between them?
24 or 30.
what about in the middle though? I mean,
This.
so what you're saying is if a semi pulls in there, how are they gonna get out? They're gonna go up and to the left?
There's the Julian.
This is modeled with a 67-foot truck, which I
Oh,
don't,
that's it. Okay.
I don't anticipate any semi trucks going anywhere near any of the storage units. Now, the RV spaces, semi truck won't, but an RV will. That's why we made those.
Probably more dangerous than the semis.
This is widest we've done. We've
The
done
semis have licenses. RV.
30 of these and of course Arkansas lately, and this is the widest we've ever done.
What's your distance between the buildings?
Scroll to the site plan. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, here. 24.
24 feet.
I was just testing you. I had the answer.
Oh, I didn't do.
70 in front. I think it's just kind of deceiving because it's
So big. It's a.
Bring it to y'all attention, because you guys know stuff.
as far as the road, I don't know why we wouldn't build the whole thing.
They'll build the whole road. Alan just thought that maybe they shouldn't have to build the 10-foot trail on the other side. It's not developed yet.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the curb.
No.
I got you.
The trail. They're building the whole road.
The other side's never gonna develop, is it? That's a pretty big drop off. It's a large drop off.
Yeah, it's a tiny piece of property that's left for a specific reason, because it's probably not gonna develop.
We talked about the island. That was the biggest thing, right? You're gonna remain on sewer if y'all got that far yet?
It's septic. We're gonna remain on septic. We've got a very large area, in storage, and the rest of the buildings, it's all gonna be dedicated as primary and alternate septic fields.
Do you have that approved through the health department?
I do not know off the top of my head. We're involved with that.
Is the sewer available?
It is about
It's a long.
1,500 feet away,
Does it work?
1,000.
Additionally?
Subdivision and, because that's what we tried to do. We wanted to do a lot more stuff there, but we just couldn't find a good way to get sewer there.
So it won't work or it's cost prohibitive?
So. Enough. It's a subdivision to the. rest of it.
To Tuscany, right?
Yeah,
You'd have to go through 2 lots, and I want to say the lift stations. The capacity.
What?
so that church right there is on septic too, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Everything over there.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
You guys give them a round of applause for their landscaping.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We did a bajillion dollars for the landscape.
Lovely.
Here we go. No.
Have you permitted these driveways through RDOT?
Yep.
They'll give you both of those?
Haircuts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Already got our permits in hand.
That's, gosh.
There's 2 there already right now.
And what's the distance between those?
Not enough.
Or 50 maybe.
Could it not be down a little further?
That was the one that we all.
I'm not talking about that road. I'm talking about the highway. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking highway.
Yeah, that one was part of, because they had 2 originally across that front. We're like, no,
Mhm.
it's not the one.
I mean, there's 2 there right now.
I want to say they had made us move it further that way to get away from the adjacent
other one?
property.
Not a fan of that, but.
People, people come around that curve pretty
I
quick. Having about a Tuscany wall that's like ever being rebuilt.
know.
All right, if there's no additional questions or comments, I would entertain a motion for development 2301. Storage World, preliminary plan.
Don, I motion to approve development 2301. Preliminary plans.
Second. Motion and a second by Ben. Is anyone opposed? Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you working with us on this and thank you for your time.
All right, next on the agenda is development 2302, the come and go preliminary plans at the southwest corner of Main Street and Seba. It is zoned C3 with the approved conditional use. How are you tonight?
Fine Cloud Filter with Ozark Civil Engineering. You have any questions? We also have come and go site development manager if you have any questions pertaining to the storage. So
Kayla, we're looking forward to your.
Yeah.
Last but not least.
So that she could just get it over.
If you can sleep to the other meetings.
Yeah. Okay, so this property was previously rezoned from R2 to B3 in February, and you guys for that. It's for the conditional use contingent on that rezone getting approved. You guys just recently approved the lot split combination right of way to get this development to be its own parcel, which is 1.5 acres. The development is adjacent to Casa Castillo, which is zone C3 with a PED, Legacy Sports Academy, which is C3, Balcony subdivision, Terra Knoll subdivision, and Lane Bridge subdivision, which are all R2. There are minor comments remaining regarding labeling, adding an ADA ramp, and then the adjacent street agreement. There is direct access to Centerton Water along Seba and Main. Sanitary sewer is proposed to connect via an offsite sewer connection at the back of Legacy Sports Academy. They're proposing a temporary drainage swale outside along the west and south sides of the property. For the project engineer, future access will cross the swale by utilizing a storm pipe, or the swales will be removed and replaced with a network of underground storm pipes, depending on the future development. Temporary drainage and grading easements will be required prior to construction. Allen has approved the proposed drainage. I just wanted to reiterate for the hours of operation, the conditional use did limit the hours of operation to make sure the development's not open between the hours of 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. That condition can be revisited at a later date as demand is established for that conditional use. There are 20 proposed parking spaces, one of which is ADA compliant. Okay, so for the adjacent street agreement, the conditional use limited their entrances and signs to be limited to one. So there's one on Main, one on Seba. Main Street is a minor arterial with 90 feet of right of way for the MSP. All required right of way already exist on Main Street. So the developer is requesting fee in lieu of street improvements to widen Main Street and curb and gutter, but they will be constructing a 12-foot trail. One point of contention here is Main Street is a 5-lane on the master street plan, or no, Seba, never mind. I think that far back. Seba is the major arterial with a right of way of 100 feet of right of way. They will be dedicating the 45 feet of right of way for the master street plan, and then they're requesting fee in lieu for the widening of Seba also. But they will be building the 12-foot trail, the street trees, and the street lights as needed. The fee in lieu that they proposed for both roads was $48,000. Allen said that Seba doesn't currently have enough room for 5 lanes, so he asked that the fee in lieu be reduced for only half-street improvements for 3 lanes on Seba. But if you guys would like to have the full 5-lane fee in lieu, I'll leave that up to you, because just because there's not room now doesn't mean there will be in the future. In terms of access and future connectivity, an access easement has been provided along the south and west sides of the property to allow for shared access with future developments. They comply with the intent of the conditional use, which was to allow for residential friendly pathing. Staff asked for a 5-foot gravel path from Seba to the convenience store so that there was safe pedestrian access to the building without having to cross through the parking lot. For lighting, RDOT stated that they would not allow streetlights to be placed on the right of way. So they denied the street light that was proposed at the entrance of Main Street. And Come and Go has stated that they don't want to put a public street light in their private developments. I don't know what you guys would suggest about that. The lighting around that access easement, or that access drive is still pretty well lit without it. In terms of landscaping and screening, the following conditions were required and met for the conditional use. Street trees shall be placed along Seba. RDOT stated they won't allow the street trees in their right of way, so we couldn't get street trees on Main Street. There is a space, a green space between the right of way and the pond that's proposed, but it's filled with utilities, so we can't put trees there. But Allen has allowed trees in the pond, and they've got pretty good landscaping along the curb on the other side of that pond. So if you guys want to look at that,
So that plan's not right.
no, those trees won't be allowed. For RDOT.
Have we?
What utilities are in there? 'Cause I don't see any on the other bit. There.
They're all in here. Crammed in
It's like
there.
all of them. I don't know if I included the utilities ones, I'll tell you which ones.
There's space between the berm and the easement.
I think what Alan was saying is that they have a retaining wall, so there's some geometric fabric or something that goes 10 feet out, so putting trees there would mess with the integrity of that. So he was strongly against putting trees in that green space between the easement and the pond.
There's also a 9-foot buffer between the parking lot and the pond. I think we can do something there.
So one tree shall be provided per 10 parking spaces, and a maximum of 12 stalls should be allowed between parking lot islands. A permanent irrigation system is provided. And then there is a landscape buffer being proposed on the outside of the access drive to allow to buffer the back of the building, but it's short enough to still allow development to have future access to the south. So we recommend approval of the landscape. Contingent on your guys' comments.
That was stated in the conditional use, right? The landscaping, street trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why.
Has there been an update on, Mr. Mayor, has there been an update on annexing Main Street from RDOT? You talked about it before.
Right, but they can still do improvements.
Right.
And like the Methodist church, we have
trees
sidewalks,
until we-
curb and gutter, they did improvements along. So it's not that they can't do them.
Still want the trees. They don't want the trees in there, right?
We can just let it trees until we own the street.
Right.
I mean,
We presented, whatever improvements to them, and then they approve or deny. And what they are proposing is leaving the ditch, no curb and gutter? Or are they piping the drainage? Because I don't,
It'll be closed and it will be piped.
it is piped,
Yeah, because I'm doing the curb and gutter, right?
so you're doing curb and gutter. So the fee in lieu, no.
No, ma'am. The ditch will go away, then there'll be a box culvert that will convey the stormwater.
Okay, okay, there's curb and gutter right
Curb and gutter existing
and behind that, you're laying in your storm.
where the existing ditch lies currently.
Do we have a breakdown of the things?
What's being waived on the improvements? What improvements would be required on Seba and
And what was the part about the?
Not waived,
I mean, big enough for 5 lane?
On Seba, it's supposed to be 5 lanes for the master street plan, but Alan said there's only like 60 feet available on Seba. So there wouldn't be enough room for 5 lanes.
But we need a side.
The others, yeah, from Terra Rose, you would get some of that in that development.
Right, that's why I don't understand.
I don't
I don't understand that.
There's plenty of room for 5 lanes.
He said further down Seba, where the fence line is, there wouldn't be enough room.
Right, well, that's
Talk
about the
We're
intersection.
talking about, the intersection. Yeah, I'm talking about the turn lane.
Right, turn lane.
Specifically, I was talking about turn lane. Yes.
Proposing widening for the turn lane. Right? That's what we talked about doing.
Proposing it.
Originally, they had talked about
I see nothing.
widening for a right turn lane.
We are not doing any roadway improvements. The traffic study did not warrant any improvements. So when we talked to Alan, we came back and he suggested do a fee in lieu of the improvements at this time.
Right turn lane right there.
Yeah, I think traffic, no offense, traffic study or not, I drive that road every day. I don't know what studies show, but there's gonna need to be some improvement there.
And that was another, we
That was a
talked about
condition,
that.
that was a condition stated as well, right?
And back to that same token, the trees were known from the very beginning. And I understand that with your current design, there's just not room, but I don't think that's a good enough excuse here.
And I think the purpose of that was it's surrounded by residential, right? So we did want buffer. We didn't want that to be right, you know, we wanted some space, some screening and some buffer between all the residential out
It's
there.
actually all commercial.
Additional.
I mean, like yeah, that one lot across the street, once it's sold, yeah, it was rezoned, right? Once it was sold, okay. Sorry, Cindy, I forgot you'd sold it. I'm sorry.
I know we also discussed canopy treatment. I don't see that included here.
I thought we had a sign height as well, not just one per entrance, but then there's like the low sign, didn't we put a sign height?
Signs.
I'm talking about the canopy for the gas pumps. What sort of architectural treatment does that have?
You'll have to.
It's not included in our packet. I don't know if you submitted that or not.
It is.
I only included the front of the building, but they did. It's the same as their building essentially. Same design.
Does it have the wrap columns?
Douglas Rennie, site development manager for Come and Go. The columns are brick. And the two-tier canopy. The fascia on it has the cedar wood board on the central section. And the aluminum fascia on the side sections to match the building materials.
That like the one off of Elm Tree, what it costs them?
That's Circle K.
No, but that's the, not the. Yeah, that is Circle K. What's the Come and Go, greenhouse? There was one that we looked at, there was, yeah, greenhouse.
Oh, no, it was south.
But yes, it should be.
Greenhouse and airport, right?
No, it was another one they showed us.
in
Should be like that.
It's over like on 8th Street or something over in Rogers. I think is the one they originally showed us. Y'all showed us one last
Showed
time.
us one with the brick columns, and I think that was
It does have
wood on the line. Okay.
Among the conditions of approval was to go to a residential materials.
Yeah.
So the main body of the building is brick. The accent corner remains the cedar wood boards. And then we have the aluminum fascia around the overhangs. Oh, and the base of the building is wrapped in cast stone.
It's shown very well.
Yeah, I don't see that shown, but.
Not shown very
I'll
well.
Take your
but-
word for it.
I mean, I guess they're
Called out.
Oh,
separation.
there it is, cast stone panel, yeah.
It's just a rendering, but you can see the.
So I think the things that we don't have a resolution on are the waiver or fee in lieu of the road improvements.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't agree.
So I'm not sure I agree with that either, and then the
Yeah.
trees on Main.
Well, the thing about the street trees is we certainly designed them in. It was really RDOT that came back and said, no, you can't do that.
So how do you keep them to meet the conditional use? That's what I'm asking y'all.
Well, we've sort of been backed into a corner on that one because we're being told we need to provide street trees and RDOT is saying, no, you can't.
At the very beginning, everybody knew that you couldn't put them in the RDOT right away. That's very widely known. It might have even been stated. Okay,
There are trees in the pond though.
I understand. There's 3, 4.
Yeah, there's 4 trees in the pond.
Can there be?
What sort of? What alternatives can you put in the utilities?
As far as trees,
As far as landscaping?
Very tall bushes instead of trees. Far down.
I mean, it doesn't look like we've explored any options here. We've just said, oh, RDOT said we can't do that, which we knew we were talking about that, and it wasn't designed into the plan, so that's kind of why we're having this conversation right now.
I'm sorry, I wasn't actually aware of the RDOT issue at the time. That's fairly new information for me, so.
That's common. At least here. And then the road improvements, what's everybody's thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought that was part of the conditions, well.
Well, I think the conditions include a traffic study,
They did include a traffic study.
and the traffic study determined there wasn't a need for road improvements other than, I believe, some additional turn lanes. Is that right, Mike? You can probably address that better than I can.
Yeah, the traffic study basically said it's not based on the development of come and go. It doesn't alter the traffic in any way in this given vicinity.
Y'all saw that? I mean, is that? 'Cause I haven't seen it, you know?
Yeah, the traffic study, all that it stated was they needed to have a left turn lane out of their facility. But nothing about existing streets. That it wouldn't impact it.
How far back is that from the turn signal? Their exit there?
You go down a little bit.
The
Sorry.
other entrance,
Maybe you have it memorized. I don't know.
Well, I have a summary here on the traffic study.
See the entrance. There, how far is that from that? That traffic light.
I don't know if they could get any further than. It's not called.
I'm envisioning the Taco Bell left turn lane in Bentonville.
Yep. It's almost, you're not getting out of there on the Seaver. The hours of daylight.
I mean,
Yeah.
but the right turn signal makes it worse. I mean, you know, the lane that you have to cross.
Right.
Another part though is
Back up.
back up, when it's so far backed up, nobody can turn into the gas station to get in.
Yeah, you won't be able to come out of that right lane into. You'd have to go past on the main street and be able to turn right on the Seaver.
Also, something else that, you may want to consider is even if we were to widen on our side, it's still not going to give you the additional width needed for that turn lane until the development to the north widens as well.
You're talking about a center turn.
That is correct.
I understand that. That's kind of typical with half street improvements.
But not doing it now restricts you from ever getting it.
What was approved with the decade? No, never mind.
No, not necessarily.
We've never,
When the development goes on the right side, then you can, as long as we get the right of way dedicated, you can always do intersection improvements with fees.
but your fee and lieu should cover the full section,
It would just be their half,
the full section of the road, not 3 lanes instead of 5.
but you wouldn't approve it to the other half. I
mean,
understand what you're saying.
A half full section based on the master street plan, because Alan told him to go to a 3-lane estimate instead of a 5-lane. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, Alan asked them for fee in lieu for 1.5 lanes instead of 2.5
Just because the right of way on the other side wasn't done?
further down.
Okay,
He's saying it's bottlenecked.
I got you.
Existing to the west.
Of course, he made controversial comments and then isn't here to defend.
We originally had it for master street plan.
mean, I get down the street, but we're talking about the intersection that's
Yeah.
about. Orders.
So I think we're on both sides and make it futuristic. That's
So
all
theoretically,
very, very busy.
if the traffic study said no extra lanes. And you took a fee in lieu with this side. And you got the right of way and took a fee in lieu with the other side for half the section. You should have the funds to come in and improve the intersection.
Correct.
So.
8,000 cover adding another lane.
That's, we don't have the estimate for the full.
That estimate was based on 1.5 lanes, right?
The estimate that was provided in here was for all of it, before they went down to 3 lanes. So 48.
58,000.
Have a cost breakdown.
Yeah, it's in the folder, but I didn't include it.
Oh, I looked in the folder. I didn't see it.
Did you go to the adjacent?
Sounds pretty cheap.
Uh-huh.
Sounds real, yeah.
You guys have a copy of the minutes with regards to specifically what the conditions were.
Do what?
I want to make sure that we're,
If the traffic, I mean, it's a traffic study.
Yeah.
The traffic study.
is it what the condition was?
But did the condition state
Right.
street improvement
This-
upon this traffic study?
Right.
Sure, and that's what normally warrants it, but this is a different conversation. This is a fee in lieu estimate from the code, not based on the conditional use. Out of the street code.
And with the first Jason Street agreement revision, there's definitely one in the file.
Fee in lieu of only lasts for 5 years, all right?
Right.
You gotta give it back.
Yeah.
So
That's not the way.
we've got a timeline of 5 years to develop on the north side. I think it's state statute.
I think it's state law.
5-year fee in lieu of 5 years.
I read that and that's not exactly what I read, but I can't tell you what.
I mean, they may have changed it, but
It's
that's what I remember.
That's my understanding of it, at least right now.
We won't fix the law tonight, but just need to understand what the amount is, so we can get to that.
I found it. As far as the fee in lieu,
You pull it up?
now just a second, let me see if I can. Pick you out for just a second. There we go. Ta-da! Did it without blowing up the plan.
118 linear feet. 327 on SEBA.
There's no subgrade prep for the new section. I mean, that's missing quite a bit.
So Alan has reviewed this and we made some modifications. I do have a new one that I have not submitted. Alan was out of the office at the time. But he did say that we need to account for the milling and overlay for a minimum of 8-foot drive lane. As opposed to say 1 to 3 foot, just a widening section per se. So that 48,092 has increased up to 62,915 is where we stand now.
Mike, let me ask you a question. If we were to, this is what we agreed upon. And we had those funds. Where's the money for the undercut on the road? Where's the money for the haul off on the road? Where's the money for the import of the dirt to go back in to get compacted, to bring that back up to an actual road section? Your estimate's missing quite a bit of stuff.
We're still working with Alan directly.
Well, then we can't approve it until it's at a point that it's good.
It cannot be a conditional approval
It can, but at this point, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that.
based on your engineer's decision and agreement.
I understand that. And I'm also, in my opinion, I'm also gonna wanna see something on the trees along the frontage.
We include that in the fee in lieu of.
Yeah.
Bond for it.
Nope. It was set as a condition on the conditional use that you're not meeting.
That was based on RDOT's control of.
Mike, have you done work in RDOT right away?
I have, and they don't always follow that.
Okay, they do.
I think you had one earlier that was in a highway right of way.
So come up with an alternative. You've made no attempt to satisfy that requirement.
Still in the process of making these revisions with Alan.
For trees or shrubs? You're just trying to bond for it, so you're trying not to do it. So let's get some on the plans. Meet that requirement unless.
Is Alan gonna be at the next meeting?
We should be,
Should be.
he's on vacation.
Fun. I mean, I think this is a pretty important section of town. It's about to get busy and it's very busy. It's everything
Got
develops.
one
out.
chance to get this right, that intersection.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm still shaky on not getting that. That street improvement there, because it's. We got really two intersections in this whole city. It'll be one of them.
Well, it's gonna be hard to go against the traffic study unless you review the traffic study and.
What was the traffic study looking at? Like not what's zoned or planned, right? It's just looking at what's currently there.
Plus the addition of that.
And it doesn't look at the other commercial that's already.
But that's when they would do a traffic study to determine that.
They actually did one, didn't they?
No, I mean, the
Traffic study for-
the future developments.
Sarah Rose did one as well.
But if we're not making those right of ways now, even when the traffic study.
We're adding a lane.
They're giving their out.
1.5 lanes, right? Not
So here,
the full 5. So let's say you develop it and then Sarah Rose says, does traffic study, and then at that point, they say, yeah, you need the turn lane. There's no room there anymore because we didn't.
No, they're
Gave up
giving,
that
they're
room.
giving the full right of way
4 or 5 lanes.
to meet the.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm saying we've got the right of way. So it's my understanding that a traffic study. They probably took into consideration, this come and go is not gonna be a draw. It's not gonna have people going, oh, I'm gonna go across town to a come and go. So therefore, they're not counting the traffic. This is a service provided business. That is probably not. I agree with your traffic study that it's not creating the need for any road improvement. I
It's
mean,
not
that's-
creating,
that's-
it's not
that's-
creating traffic, it's
No, we're
disrupting
talking about two
traffic.
different things. We're talking about what warrants a traffic study and what we actually want with the expanded intersection. Those are two different things. I'm just trying to explain the warrant study is, I agree with probably what it says because it goes in the draw of the business. I've seen the warrant studies that we've tried to get in Bentonville when we've had apartment complexes go in and everything else. And it's a challenge to get it until the count's there. They do it after the fact. It's like the count has to be there at that intersection for.
I understand that part, and I don't disagree with the count.
I'm with you. I would like to get it.
But it's not,
I'm just.
I'm looking at it as not necessarily traffic.
Without getting sued.
I'm not looking at it as traffic addition or subtraction. I'm looking at disruption of the current traffic that's already there. Which doesn't include a traffic study. Traffic study doesn't say you're gonna disrupt the current traffic. It says you're either gonna add or subtract traffic. Right?
Question, on the traffic study, did they do new road counts?
I'll have to look at it in detail, but they go over what is in the vicinity and how the come and go development impacts what's existing currently.
I did look at, and they did do, if I remember correctly, traffic counts and then projected those 5 years.
There were traffic counts, yes, ma'am.
Tony, what are your thoughts on the fee in lieu estimate based on the full 5-lane section or the?
No, I agree with the full 5-lane section. I think because that's what it's gonna take when we eventually get it done. And like I said, our timeline is maybe a mute point. I mean, I'm in agreement on the full 5-lane thing in lieu of. But like I said, we may just be giving it back 5 years later, but that's.
I don't think the north will, Devin said this earlier, I don't think the north will take 5 years to develop them.
And we could do it at that time.
I mean, that's a. Still a risk.
But I mean, you can't really ask for improvements that the traffic study does.
Fair.
so then back to the dollar amount. You think it's low?
For what this is, yeah. I mean, this is not a full, like Joey said, there's no construction of the expansion. of the-
Upgrade preparation or anything.
Exactly, there's no, haul off fees, I mean, there's several missing items.
I mean, and I'm willing to let staff handle the landscaping deal. Just adjacent to the sidewalk, street, whatever, wherever we can get it. I think the intent needs to be met of what was asked for in the conditional use. Now, the street thing, that's a different story, because I feel like if Alan approved that. I don't know.
I mean, if any, this is something that we would ask of any developer on any given corner, of any given street. Is to do per master plan, street improvements or street fee and lieu of.
Correct. At this point,
That's where I'm at.
yeah, at this point, it's just the dollar amount. I think is the hang up.
And I would leave that to staff to approve that. I mean,
This is what staff gave us to recommend for approval.
the staff, that's a 3-lane, right?
No, that's.
That's five, that says,
Staff also-
it's 5 lane. It's not, and I don't,
I would ask staff to go back and recalculate with the
62.
What other items? do you-
construction cost.
So I can take it back to Alan.
It needs to be every item line by line on what it would take to build that. Not just turn lane / lane widening.
The construction cost and.
Yes,
That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
and it's missing some construction costs. I think that pavement striping cost is a little low too, and I would go with thermal paint instead of paint.
Well, doesn't
No,
even-
that's not thermal paint cost, I know that.
It doesn't specify, right? But it's not.
Paint won't last a year.
Yeah, I know. You even paint it for $1 a foot? All right.
Meeting's over, it's.
So I think that's a way to move forward with. like,
And
contingency.
RDOT, and I'd be happy with just RDOT costs, they've got median costs for RDOT costs if he wanted to go with that.
How about that, Kayla? Recommend that to Alan for comparison.
They got that on RDOT website, you can pull in the cost.
All right.
We were looking for 12 trees, if I did my math right,
That's what I had.
if we leave the landscape up to you.
Well, I don't think
To get trees.
we'll be able to
You
get.
may able to get some really, really tall.
I think we need very substantial shrubs.
They did have a lot of shrubs around the curb
Mhm.
on the other side of the pond, so I thought that was good, but if you want to get something closer to the road.
I think we need something that looks like they tried to put trees there.
So now I'm hearing we're in agreement with allowing staff to handle the landscape and to handle the being in lieu of with some guidance that we would feel comfortable with. If I heard everybody correctly now. If there are no other questions or comments, with those two things being handled by staff, I would entertain a motion for development 2302, the come and go preliminary plans.
Telling you to make a motion to approve development 2302 come and go preliminary plans. With the staff. The 5-lane. Money in lieu of prices to be determined. By this city engineer.
Second.
And landscaping.
And landscape, yeah.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed to that? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Island has a good vacation.
I'm gonna put this favorite, or we get it back.
I think call them tonight anyway.
I consider it.
I think he just did on the other one too, personally. We can talk about that later.
What?
Some of the street improvements on the other one. Mainly the other two that we saw.
Discussion. It's Caleb bedtime.
It's almost down. You gotta go.
Who's gonna lead the discussion?
What?
Who's gonna lead the discussion?
Oh, I will. Somebody else's voice for a while.
Staring in there.
Just.
Good if we don't have.
Okay.
But a bunch of conditions. They say.
There we go. Woo.
Changes.
The change that read.
Okay. First sentence, or first paragraph. We have compliance with the regulations of this code in no way in no way excuses the developer from the applicable requirements. We got it as otherwise required. As. We want otherwise, do we need otherwise, or as required by the city of Centerton Municipal Code? In Title 15 subdivision and development regulations, Title 9,
Otherwise, it's fine.
blah, blah, blah. Do we need otherwise, Brian?
I think so.
Okay. Paragraph 3 down, we added. Property values. We added, so that we knew what we were talking about there. The development is found to be in accordance with the purpose, spirit, and intent. It not found to be hazardous, harmful, or otherwise adverse to the environment. So it adverse to property values or adverse to the character of the neighborhood. And then the next paragraph. It has the intent which, for a PUD, which is to encourage the diversification. So that if they have a development that comes in and it doesn't strictly comply with water zoning code. There are certain that it allows flexibility to design differently, but still maintain the basic characteristics of the underlying zoning. So we just added a statement that allowance for flexibility in the zoning regulations necessitates the developer to provide additional open space and amenities as further outlined in this section to equally benefit the city. So we were just trying to add some clarification of some sentences.
I got a question though, because we had this overall question of. Is it its own zoning classification or is it not?
It's not right now,
So if we're changing it, do we change it?
and make it its own zoning classification.
Yeah, I think that solves a lot of issues that we have currently, right? I just know how few and far between we make revisions to the code. And I feel like if we're spending the time and energy to do this, kind of similar to the landscape code, it'll probably never get done. So,
I agree 100% on that.
yeah.
We're really close on that, John. Reading what that Friday.
I worked at, had this.
It's huge, so, all
On zone.
I agree.
right.
I mean, that's two cities I work in, at the time.
I asked Keegan and a few guys from planning in Bentonville and they said, they strongly recommend that.
As its own zoning district. Do they add any designation on the end of a PUD, like for residential,
It
commercial?
makes it a more detailed PUD plan like what we saw tonight wouldn't work. We would have to be, basically, there's a lot more design that goes into it.
Mhm.
Yeah, but there's,
On their part.
yeah, and there's talk right now of coming back off of that a little bit too. Because it kind of discourages, there's so much.
Find out whatever works for us, whatever, I mean, but that's typically
No, Lorraine, I'm not sure what they do on that. Like, how would you designate the one tonight? Cause it was like everything.
Mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, can we write that in the code where it's, I think how I would recommend that we do that is that. Somehow there's an intended zoning that we're trying to mimic. Or at least adhere to that's adjacent. So if it's like, R3 all around it or R2 all around it. You don't want to go too far from R2 with the PUD. So I'm wondering if there's a way to write that into the code. Where the intent of the PUD in that specific instance is to adhere to the surrounding zoning and land use plan. But giving some flexibility to deviate from that.
We would have to relook at this as far as its zoning district. This was written.
I know, but that's how we left the last meeting.
Here are some of these issues that we're having on open space and so forth, the requirements, parking.
Would you not rather do it all at once?
We need something in place right now, and then as we rewrite the zoning districts, then we can do that. But
That's a whole nother overhaul.
yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
we're working on, but we want to get the development code done first. That has the landscaping and
Because
everything else.
we don't have,
This would be an incremental step then.
Yeah,
this is an increment.
but other than adding a PUD zoning, what else would we have to change in the zoning code?
Oh, there's a lot to
We
change.
have
in
a
the
lot
zoning.
to
I'm just saying, if all we're trying to handle is the PUD part, we don't have to touch the other side.
Well, the other stuff needs also.
Oh, I agree.
This takes care of some of our immediate issues with reviewing a PUD.
We did have a lot come through tonight, PUD wise.
And we have a lot of questions on them.
I mean, I don't disagree, but if we're trying to meet an immediate need, I think let's get this through and then
Then we can look at what else required as far as for PUD.
Yeah.
Okay, but we added definitions for open space and mixed use. I did add another word in here. Refers to common usable land for the purpose of providing parks, recreational facilities, areas for pedestrian. I added gathering, movement and circulation. If we don't have the gathering in there, then pretty much they're drawing little. In one development, they tried to do all the little sidewalks that go to the entrances of their.
Well, what about like,
And we're like, no, they said, well, it's pedestrian movement.
how about engagement or? I mean, gathering, does that help? I mean, would that help defend your?
Instead of gathering, put engagement.
Yeah,
There is for pedestrian.
6-1 does another probably. I mean.
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it helps, but
Gathering insinuates a little bit more. A few more people versus an engagement. An engagement, in my mind, could be I passed Brian on a walkway.
I don't-
A lot of trail.
Ahead of the engagement.
I don't mean engagement like that. I mean engaging somebody in this open space, activating
Activating the space.
pedestrian activation.
That's something here about.
Robots.
That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
but
by
I mean, I think gathering gets them the ball rolling in a way. And then maybe there's definition a little bit later or something.
We do talk about further. We talk about for things to count towards open space, it has to activate the space.
There we go.
So we'll get there.
Know what you mean, though? They're just gonna put a bunch of trails in there, so there you go.
Yeah.
Like it.
That dump out in the road.
Yeah, we drew a path, it counts. We drew a path.
Shame on them.
Definition for first. That it's integrated uses instead of just. Where they depend on each other, or they, work together. That was one thing that was missing. On what people considered as mixed use. Then let's see, go down to conditions. Let's see, did we change, I thought we changed that paragraph for uses. No, that's okay. I had a section in here for conditional uses. Within a PUD must be shown as conditional on the schedule of use table within the respective zoning district in order to be considered for approval by the planning commission within PUD approval. And that's what we did tonight. Uses shown as conditional do not automatically receive approval. Each conditional use requested must have specific requirements for the PUD commission, for the planning commission to approve. Any conditional use not specifically approved as part of the PUD approval shall follow the conditional use process.
Did I read your mind on this when I wrote my report?
Yes, you did. Good job.
Okay. Any change to the wording needed?
Not that I see at the moment.
Okay. We continually have problems with developers wanting to do their own little internal development and not connect
No.
to adjacent properties. So
No.
the developer shall consider future connectivity by providing shared access, street stub outs, trail connections, and other requirements as recommended by the planning staff and approved by the planning commission.
Yep.
All right, density. Tonight, they came in with higher density, and it was like, what are you going to give in order for you to have a higher density than that underlying zoning? So this was a table that we had worked on, and basically what we did, if there's an increase of density of 5%, then we would increase that open space, the 25%. So this is the 25% with a factor of 5%.
Okay.
And I don't think it comes out too bad.
I think it's pretty good.
It seems fair.
So it's easy. Okay, open space. We put a sentence in here. The planning commission may request additional open space based on proposed density, as we stated above. Open space shall be developed proportionally to each proposed phase of a development.
Let me ask you this, and again, it's the first time I'm looking at, it. How does paragraph 8 not conflict a little bit with the 6?
Well, actually,
yeah, I'm
it
just
could just
concerned.
reference as
Okay.
above.
But it sounds to me like the plan commission could require more than what's required by the chart based on paragraph 8.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm sure that any developer is gonna say, no, they can't.
So they're-
Paragraph 6 says,
The table is just based on increased density, so if they're asking for increased density, they're asking for a taller building, et cetera.
Put minimum on the chart. Would that help, Brian?
it'll certainly help, yeah, but I'm just help with them.
So the other column would be minimum.
Or the open space requirement will be increased at least in proportion to the percentage increase in density. That sounds good.
Same thing.
As determined by the, yeah. Okay.
Wait a minute. What was that? Which one?
Which part?
I
Okay, I would say that the open space requirement will be increased at least
In proportion?
to the portion of the increase in density pursuant to, I mean, I don't, not having read all this, you may say pursuant to paragraph 8 of this
So there
section.
may be some tweaks after
Yeah.
Brian. Really read.
What's he been doing vacation? I'm done, I mean,
So this is on your to-do list. We'll send
I
it.
heard you said it too. I just got it.
I guess you have it Dropbox. Well, it was in Dropbox, but I did make a few changes before the meeting, so. As.
I mean, I think we're,
I do that to them.
I think we're definitely aligned with making sure that as they go up, density, I mean, absolutely, like the one tonight was astronomical, but
Okay, go to section.
Can we stay right there? In that next paragraph under the highlighted one, it says open space excludes detention. and drainage roads.
I had some. Yes, it includes,
Building lines.
Yeah. Easements. Well, no, saying it doesn't exclude it, but it's counted at a different rate.
in here where.
Detention, we haven't said will count unless you guys.
Oh, have we not?
No.
Okay.
If it's
Not-
retention.
Retention, yes.
I'm not sure that counts either.
Okay, listen, let's keep going and then you can say that.
Well, should we put? Unless says, well.
No,
it
I don't think we want to encourage that because it never goes well and.
Excludes detention.
Okay, which will not include rights of way, access drives, detention ponds, parking lots. This is redundant.
Rather say it 5 times than no times.
Yes, make sure we say it right all the times, but. Okay, section
Yes.
double I there. This was that 50% of the common open space requirement cannot be comprised, can be comprised of the following combined. So whatever they have of these items,
Okay.
the maximum that they can make up of the open space is 50%. I noticed on the project tonight, they had their easements and detention pond, and then they took 50% of that and applied it. Luckily, it came out to 7 acres where their green space was 14, so it was still didn't meet that 50%. But we gotta get our head around exactly how.
Didn't we say these areas only in total up to, or if I have a acre of retention pond, I only get to count that as half? And then all of that combined can only count for X percentage?
If we
Is that in here?
That's the way I understood it.
That's the way I think it should be.
said, we do not have that specifically in here, so.
Why not? That's what we,
You can only count half that space and then all those halves add up to.
Hey.
that's what we talked about last time, yeah.
And on under retention ponds, then,
You would do half of a half is 25, right?
okay,
Oh, man.
50% of retention ponds as measured by the normal water surface can be counted towards the open space.
Right, it's a double though, but they only count at a certain percentage.
50% of the pond can count up to 50% of the open space.
Correct, but that's not what that said.
It will.
Okay.
I added up to 50% of the retention ponds as measured by the normal water surface area or other bodies of water.
Let me, okay,
Pinch.
it's common knowledge that lawyers can't do math, and that's why we're
Yeah.
lawyers, we stick in gray. But isn't that 25%?
But I just said half of a half.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just,
At 25%.
But only 25% of the 50% of not
Only 50.
ideally.
okay, never.
Brian's just saying it would only be 25%.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, it would be half of a half, which is 25%.
So 25%. Can be retention.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Quarter of a
That's the way it said.
It was literally.
I just said the same thing to him. I was like, so we take all these halves, add them up to a half. 25%.
But. Okay.
I don't know if it works or not, you know.
I'm trying to think of a scenario where it wouldn't work, but that means they get to count it in whole. So if you have a smaller area, I mean, I
I don't know,
really-
you guys are the engineers,
See what I'm saying?
do the math, I'm just curious.
It's a 1 acre pond
Yep.
and you have half of that. So that's a half acre that you can count towards the 50%. Correct?
Correct.
It's just a word problem, that's why I'm not.
I just want to make sure that we've got it right and then we'll try to figure out exactly.
And it might be easier to list what is restricted as far as you only get to count or of all your open space, only these items or these items can only make up 50% of your required open space.
That's the list.
I'm gonna put
Right.
it on number 2, I may title it restrictions on open space.
Yeah, that might be easier. I'm trying to think of a scenario where 25% wouldn't work. If we just say,
That's
we
right.
make up 25%.
Like that, I can see something if we were on, close to a hilly ravine side or something they were trying to develop. That's the only thing I could see,
It would-
because they'd have some undeveloped land on a side slope or something like that, but
Knew that when they bought it.
we
I
don't.
think we had something on slopes.
That's why you would want to do a PUD, right?
Yeah, that's why you would have,
Or
and then you would do a variance, or if those are the ones, one time that you would maybe
Yeah.
do a variance.
Yeah,
If it's a special condition
that's a good point.
lot, right? If it's a lot.
Okay,
9% of the time.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
I think Brian might be onto something here.
Yeah, not on purpose, I was
gonna tell you, man, it's physics. Yeah, I said
Okay.
25%.
so the restrictions on
Phased scale.
space can only count towards, now you're saying. Okay, this was the 50% originally,
Right.
right?
But we wanted to limit that
The retention part of it,
to,
all
we're limited it to
to
50%.
25% of the 50% restriction?
of, no, I think it's just 25% of the total.
Is 50% of 50% is 25% total
For everything.
for everything. It can only,
25% of it is not ideal and 75% of it is ideal.
Yeah.
yes. So all this can add up to 25% of your open space.
Yeah, but how you wrote it wasn't what we talked, or not you, I'm sorry, how it was written. I didn't mean it that way. Isn't how we discussed it last time, because we had discussed all of these together can only equal 50%.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we said last
That's what
time. That's where.
But
Was.
on top of that, it's not a 1-for-1. Like an acre worth of pond isn't the same as an acre worth of park.
Which is why we limited to
Right.
50%.
It's only worth,
Yeah, I'm saying there were, what we talked about last time, there were additional restrictions on top.
so if it's a pond.
Well,
Sorry, guys.
specify
half the
that
amount's a Pond. So that's.
Who's on first?
all of these, that even included in this 50%, they have to have a water feature, some kind of trail, something that activates this space to make it make sense to count. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah.
We're not just getting a pond, we're getting a pond kind of amenity.
And then what about easements? You got a 100-foot utility easement that we're not counting.
Correct.
That's in here.
Yeah,
So it was 50% of that, right?
All of these can count towards 50%. So if you've got
Okay.
pond and a utility easement, both of those combined can only be 50%.
Correct.
so
So that you
we
get-
should have.
And they have to
a
have
good
that.
50% or 50% of good usable
Yes.
area.
And the other 50 is not ideal, but it still has to have some kind of amenity to count.
Make it count. Now, we did add areas located in wetlands or floodplains shall be limited to 25% of the restricted 50% common open space.
And floodplains require.
Yes.
Is that the word-
Boardwalks, seating, trails, etc.
Is that the wording you also want for the retention pond? 25% of the 50 restricted?
Yeah, that's.
Is that the wording you want?
That would just be.
When you get in the floodplain, they can always do a loan and get out the flood.
That, then we can add that to the retention pond.
Yeah.
That it would be restricted to the 25%.
What do y'all think?
What is it now? What is it currently? Like a retention pond be counted as what currently? Remind me.
50%.
Not right now, though, right? Right now, it's up to 50%.
Yeah. It can be up to 50% of the whole, yeah.
Right, right now, the difference is that we don't clarify that
It has
you
to
can have
have.
50% of a utility easement and then the other 50% be the pond.
You could have all of it together, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then maybe we're good with what we have.
Okay.
I think it would be simple, but to try to write it down.
It's not.
No.
I know, and we may want.
Like, this should not be that difficult,
We
but
might do some examples, add some examples in here.
And we did add that other restrictive conditions may be identified by city staff during the review of the project and could be subject to the above limitations with final decision to be determined by you guys. So if there's some strange thing that we didn't consider here, we can say, hey, planning commission, this is weird, it shouldn't count towards good space.
Or there's something weird and.
To John's point, I mean, we can always do a variance. I
You
mean,
can always do a special variance, yeah.
I like that, they catch all.
Floodplain? Was that meant to be half of the 50%?
Yes.
Yes.
That's not what that said.
Of the limited 50.
Well, that's half.
25% of your not good usable. space.
25% of the,
50%, this is all 50%. All these-
25% of.
but you have 100% of your 50% limited space, right?
This is the. This is the restricted.
I understand. Think of the restricted as its own group, which equals 100%.
I think,
Right.
yeah.
But
Saying that only a quarter of that can be floodplain. But I think the intent was for half of it to be flood. Right?
Half of the 50%.
Let's just put half in there and get rid of the percent.
Got it.
25% of 50%, now it's 12.5%, just. Just do math here. Simple math,
Did we want 25?
We don't want 12%, we want 25%.
12.5%.
So of that restriction,
To allow them to have wetlands and floodplains of 25%. Basically of 25% instead of 12%, 12.5.
I think that was the intent when we talked to Alan, but yeah, if you would like the intent to be 12, then.
He's on vacation.
I mean, do we feel like that's? I mean, that discourages the use of floodplain for open space. And how are you gonna activate floodplain? You're not.
Floodplain is open space.
You do. They're not gonna do
They
anything.
can't count that as.
as they're 25.
Yeah.
Like a trail, some benches,
Yes.
stuff,
What do y'all see more often than not?
try to count floodplain and put nothing there.
I was gonna say, can we write an example in here and say, our most common example? Example, if you have 1 acre of floodplain, it only counts for X amount. That way the math is there for
I
that.
think we need to figure that out.
Just me personally is 100% floodplain, because I don't want any development floodplain. I'm willing to give
We don't want
100% of flood.
floodplain for all of their green space.
Your count is green space, because green space is not developed. So. many-
Actually, opposite. Of what we're
I would
not
say
green,
any-
green space. Yeah.
I'd say that could count as my personal opinion, but if y'all want
Wait a
something.
minute, you're saying that it counts 100% towards open space?
We don't get anything.
I mean, nobody's did.
If they're not developing in the floodplain. We don't want them to develop in a floodplain. We would give credit for open space.
But they're not doing anything with it. They just, there's your floodplain.
They have everything.
It's of no use.
Floodplain, right? You don't want to develop in the floodplain.
But we're not getting anything.
We're not getting, they're not gonna develop it anyway.
There's a benefit to the city for it.
And now they're getting double benefit out of it because they're not developing it and they're counting it towards all of their open space. This isn't saying that they're gonna go develop it, because they're not. This is just saying you can only count X percentage of that as your open space, not green space, but open space.
Or higher density and say, okay, well, here's just more floodplain to offset it.
Right.
Okay.
It's no benefit.
I'm with you.
You can have a crammed area on a flood lot,
I see your
Still
point.
like,
I see that, John. I see what you're saying.
still like phase 2.
Yeah.
And for me, the percentage is there.
Are we doing
Good calculation.
12.5 or 25,
Something else.
which would be 25 or 50?
25.
Half of the 50%
Yeah.
would be the 25%.
25.
I mean, that's
I just did it.
the whole 100%,
25.
the whole 100% of the 25%.
I think 25%.
Make up my brains.
Okay.
Circle.
All right,
Again, I think once we get some examples down, there might be a light bulb somewhere that.
For applicant, yeah, we'll realize what we did.
Pull some SAT scores around here.
Like that. Anything if it's-
Say longer.
this, regarding slope, or we had something regarding the slope.
The slope used to be 15%. Alan said make it 16%, 6 horizontal, 1 vertical, which is more engineer friendly. Cause I.
What?
For the slope.
I like land that has a.
Can you go up a little bit?
That inland, if it has a larger, I got it.
So on, let's include amenities. and-
The city's not maintaining the new developments detention ponds, are we?
Trying to
Why does it
have
matter?
peaceful open space,
Yeah,
but they're
trying to guarantee that we can.
instead of what we've been getting.
Can we already say that it should be activated to count as open space?
We just say.
Over and over.
You just say what?
Now we just say it a lot more.
This, yeah, this,
Okay.
like for on a slope,
Mhm.
yeah. We're adding, okay, do a garden area.
16% is so odd though.
Alan said 6-1 made more sense to engineers instead of 15%. He's very adamant. He walked around the room to show us this is a 16% slope. It was great. Glad you
It's
guys
funny
could see
because
it.
none of us could get in our heads.
I
but
missed it.
It seemed what it looked
It's
like.
not that, it's not that bad.
We're like, what does that look like in the real world, Alan?
We'll be able to defend it next time.
All right. Keep going.
Okay. BI, dedication by deed or easement and improvement of the land for public use as a public park and trail system or public space. So this is, ownership shall be accomplished by dedicating the deed to the city for public use as a park, creating a permanent open space easement with ownership and maintenance being, that's the same, being the responsibility of the property owner.
Hold on, do they have to do that? Can they not keep it private? We don't want to accept every little dinker trail out there.
There's one is public and the second one is. private.
Just an easement saying that it can't be.
Develops.
And then 9 is architectural treatment. Items A and B, A and C shall apply to multifamily residential developments. And item A apply to industrial developments. So what does item B apply to? Well, it's commercial, but we don't say that.
Item B is just the
Architectural
photos.
elevations shall be provided with an initial concept submittal to ensure that the following requirements are met. So that we're just adding that requirement that y'all want to see with the buildings, so that we don't get something that they present one thing and then they do something else. The vertical plane under C, we added with each facade facing a public view. That needs to have dimension, at least a foot. To be broken up, but then on
Would
the
that technically
side,
be all 4 of the sides of the building though?
well,
Like public right of way, like the street.
yeah, if it's visible, having that dimension,
I'm trying to
but
articulate
if it's on the sides, then they could do it with materials.
Just saying, how do you define visible? So like that come and go? Technically, the south side's visible, but it's not fronting a public right of way. So would that have to be counted or no?
public right of way. If it's public right of way, it has to have an actual facade articulation. If it's one that's not public right of way, it needs to have a simulated.
I know, I totally understand that, but is it visible or actual adjacent? So they're two different things.
I mean, like the one tonight, I mean, think about the 2 storage facilities, right? I mean, if I'm sitting inside, you've got all this residential, including some 2-story townhomes, they're gonna be able to look and see the storage facility. If I look at this and it says facing the public view, I mean, are we not counting that as the public view then? So if they were looking at that, let's say the south side, they could see something that's ugly. Let's put it right. I mean, so do we want to, how's it define a public view?
I think the intent was viewable from the public right of way, visible from the public right of way. Which in my opinion, tonight, just thinking about that coming again, every single side of it would have been visible from the public right of way. Right? So like, how do you define that?
I think that one will get some pushback, but I don't know. I mean, I think we need to think about this one. I mean, public view to me is one thing. But if I'm driving down the street, I mean, it's public view, right? So if I'm driving down that large thing we saw tonight of 140 acres, there's a lot of spots in that you'd be able to see all 4 sides of that, of the storage facility. But then are we gonna require them to do? That's what this is saying, right? Will we get any pushback or is that what we want? I mean, that's the way.
Probably will, but the intent of a PUD is to allow flexibility and get a higher standard of design, right?
Yeah, that goes to the, again. If that makes sense, ask for variance.
I think if we're gonna say this, you say visible from public right of way.
But, okay, what about a private development? We had one come in, the apartment buildings. And they were adding on. And it's private, you can see, all you'd see is the side of the building. Where we wanted them to articulate the front of the building as you drive in, being able. Because that's still a public view.
Could you not stand on the public right of way
You
and
could be on the public right away and see that street.
It was adjacent to another building, so you know, I mean, that's a side. So it's.
Well, this is exactly what
That's what
we're
we're
get
talking
pushback.
about here, that like,
Or private.
that the sidewall facades could be, this could be accomplished by using two different architectural materials. So you might have brick and then you might add some stone or something to break up that facade. Or windows and then put the, you know, awning about something that breaks.
When you say facing a public view, that's gonna be only the sides of the buildings that are fronting a public street. You put visible from the public right of way, that leaves more to interpretation.
I thought the intent was to have a clear articulation, not a simulated one, if it's facing the direct sides of a street, and then the other sides would be a simulated one, so they can do that with different textures.
Why do we care if it's real or fake?
Cost.
But I don't think that you dictate, I think all we're caring about is the exterior of the building, right?
Yeah.
So if they need to make them fake, that's fine. If they're real, great. What does it matter what? How they're used?
Because having a little bit of dimension on a building is a lot better than just articulating with different types of material.
Okay, I don't get that from reading that.
Okay. So.
Say articulation, that's an actual physical offset in the building.
Mhm.
Are you not saying that?
Okay, we want that for the front
Yeah.
or the visible side from for public. That's what they would commonly see.
Well, then that's what he said from public right of way, not public access.
Maybe private. Dude, that's a.
If it's a private road, we don't have
If it's
it.
private, let's just say all sides of the building have to have it if that's what we're going for.
Well, that's why we put public view, because you may not see the back of the building necessarily. So that would be,
I think we're saying the same thing.
I
okay,
mean, I think we want more versus less. I think it just has to be worded the right way. I think is.
visible from public view. You're wanting right of way, and I think that limits it, then.
No, I mean, I think y'all determine whatever is more. I think public view, Joey thinks right of way, I think public view because it should encompass more than just the right of way, right? That's the way I'm
Right.
thinking about it.
If there's a private access,
View that's not. Right.
I don't know how you define public.
Public-
view.
public
That-
view.
That isn't.
I think public view would be hard to, yeah, I think that'd be hard to define too. Yeah.
Public way is, you're on city street and you can see it.
What if,
what about?
I'm with you.
access?
I'm trying to
I'm
protect
just
it.
trying,
like that thing tonight, again, I'm just thinking if you're, you know. If you're in a 2-story townhome and you look out.
Mhm.
That's a public view.
Right.
In my mind. Do we want them to be able to see the variation in, let's say, a
if you're a
commercial?
two-story townhome, that's actually a private view, wouldn't it? Cause you're a resident of that. You're in that town.
Private property.
Be a private view.
What if I'm in my yard though, then, I mean,
I think we'll have to.
Man, I'm just trying to,
Human view.
The point is you're driving down the road, right, and you.
I'm just trying to keep him from having to, right away, it's city-owned property. You're on it, you can see it. Now you're getting into private property and
but if it's a private street, if it's a neighborhood with private streets only.
You still,
we don't have a dog in that hunt.
yeah, we do.
We don't.
We still want the city, we're still,
I
if
mean,
they're doing a PUD asking for certain things. And I think that we have the right to make something look decent instead of just a blank wall.
You're right, but
yeah, just because they want to maintain private streets doesn't mean all the architecture and everything else goes out the door.
I'm thinking about the maintenance aspect of it. On private streets.
But what we want from an architecture is
You're gonna have to maintain that.
This is architecture treatment. for visibility. So that it looks nice.
Want to do
I
the
think
private
we're- I
streets.
think we're all in agreement that more is better.
It's how
Yeah, figure out how it-
how you fund it.
Right.
Because then that kind of throws my theory out the window of right of way, because if they're private streets, we don't have any right of way in a private street.
It's still public view, so, right, like, I'm thinking Tallymore, I mean, it's private streets, on the street, but you can see, it's not gonna be trespassed for riding my bike on it.
Right.
You might.
You could though, right?
Good, I don't know. It's,
You come down my street.
town, you get me out there.
Right, landscaping and tree preservations, we added a statement at the end, additional landscaping requirements may be required with large-scale development or subdivision plans. Sometimes they might present something, they may have to change on the development plans. Yeah. So we're just giving them a warning.
You go ahead and just put Joey's name in there. too.
Joey. Maybe required by Joey.
Absolutely, I do.
Site lighting, this was taken out, but I added it back in, just letting them know that it will be in. And I may need to rewrite this a little bit better, but just let them know that it will be required with the development plans, and these things will be required. They may not have to do it with the PUD, but it will be coming.
I think, yeah, that was more of the intent, but we took it out.
That's redundant.
What can we put in there to avoid situations like tonight where people don't wanna take responsibility for what was approved, where street trees, oh, but RDOT said we can't, we're just gonna not do it.
My position is that was an agreement pursuant to the conditional use. It doesn't matter what RDOT says.
That's what I
was
was
gonna ask him, so that,
Absolutely.
that now, does that now nullify the conditional use? Because they couldn't meet the conditional.
No, I mean, that's not the deal. No, they, it's, they agreed to comply with those terms.
So put them on their their property if they can't.
Yeah, no, I know, but how do we avoid situations? Can we add language to this saying,
50%.
you know, uh, something like during the large scale review process or.
I mean, if they're unable to comply, I think you can want.
Under,
I mean, that's my take.
Well, we gave you this conditional use based on these conditions. If you don't meet the conditions, then you don't get.
That's it.
Do not say, so you're saying I wasn't too mean?
No, I don't think you were too mean at all, quite frankly. on
It
that.
does say somewhere in this PUD
We have to kick him
that
out.
the planning commission can deny the large scale development plans or subdivision plans if they fail to meet these.
Yeah.
recommendations.
Okay.
Looks like it's somewhere here. I know.
It is.
okay, so on number 10, you want something added in regard?
No, I was just bringing that up.
Oh, okay.
They want maternity leave.
If Brian won't get me in trouble for doing that, then we're all good.
No, I completely agree.
I'll tell them that.
All right.
Huh?
I'll tell them that too.
Yeah.
So if they don't meet the, they can just, you guys have the, to revoke it.
Off-street parking. Okay, this is recommended.
Oh, God.
Recommended,
Ratio.
I don't know. We still were at a loss.
I just put recommended minimum parking.
Does this match up with our other?
This matches with what we've been doing. This is basically the same chart except for what's in red.
Mhm.
The 2 to 5 plexes, like that we approved tonight, we put 2 per dwelling unit. But you want 2 covered, 2 uncovered, the same as single family, or do you want?
I don't care if they're covered or uncovered. I don't think we,
Do you think they only need 2 or do they need 4?
on what?
On 2 to 5 plexes.
Is it 2 per unit, regardless of
3.5.
covered and covered, or 2 uncovered, 2 not covered?
If you require less, you get one place.
Sure.
In theory.
In theory.
No, you just
But
can't.
we just have to make sure that they don't, if they don't have on-street parking ability, then that's where they need to expand.
Cover 2 uncovered if parking is available, 2 if free parking is available.
I mean, I'd much rather wouldn't it be better to have smaller streets with parking in a building versus parking on a street?
I just hate on street parking, period. I don't like it. It's dangerous. I just don't like it. And I'm not a fire marshal, but he agrees. I just don't like on-street
I'm
parking.
telling you, it slows the speeders down in my neighborhood. I love it.
I know.
It's a traffic comment.
You see one kid run out from behind a car, man, and that's.
No, in the code, that's a traffic calming device.
You are correct.
See the argument last night in Springdale over the whole speed.
Fly through Oak Tree all the time.
Multifamily,
Come down Shane Drive.
Okay.
number.
multifamily with 1.5, let's say you have a
Up to 60.
3-unit middle. I mean, are you just adding all those up and then wherever they put them,
Yeah.
count it?
To make sense that the parking is evenly distributed.
Okay, yeah, and that's what came up on that one today too, is it was all over here, nothing over here, yeah. I think that's good. Can you leave us some room to adjust if?
Whatever you want
With PUD.
Otherwise, yeah.
Or otherwise, yeah.
This is the recommended minimum.
For the 2 to 5 plex, 2 per dwelling unit. We're talking width. We don't want a single car garage and a single car drive. Right?
I don't think you can, yeah, I don't think you can get 2 side by side on a multiplex.
Some of those you can't.
You can't. I think it's just 2. If they got a garage and a car and a driveway, that should be fine.
Okay. Multifamily, we have been doing 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Yeah, but then we put additional visitor parking should be considered.
How about putting will be considered?
Okay,
Brian said absolutely consider that.
yes.
May, shall and could not exist.
Do we have issues?
What's that?
Do we have issues that we don't know about?
Well, no, I'm just saying it should be. Who's it put the burden on?
Oh, right.
It's just kind of putting out there. So I think if we're saying will, that gives us the option to consider. it.
Lawyers.
Heading says recommended.
Shall.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I could do.
Okay, hotel mode.
So should we remove recommended?
I think we need it. What was that one we got where it
I
had?
don't think so. I think now you've been overtaken it at least at this point, and it's after 9, but I mean, it's recommended, but I think we're just making clear that staff will consider. That they should and didn't, because it's just, yeah.
The developer will consider. Somebody.
Will you tell, I mean, yeah, somebody will. Yeah.
Somebody will.
It's gonna be addressed.
By golly.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving.
Okay, the main one that I don't know that we have much problem with having these, the school, the 3.5 seats in assembly rooms plus 1 per faculty member. Schools are difficult.
Yeah.
They're just, this is from the ICC. It's here. They have assembly areas. It gives us a guideline to go by that typically will.
All right,
What we're proposing.
let's keep going. We're way past Elizabeth time now.
There is a combination of uses on a lot. The applicant can propose a ratio with explanation to be approved. This means that if there are different uses and they have different times where they can be used, the parking spaces can be used in multiple ways, then we'll look at that.
Arrows.
And kind of what we were discussing tonight also.
Should we put that in there to give them guidance on that, like offset hours, things like that?
Examples.
Example.
Another example, offset hours, uses.
More green space. Tony said. Tony said that, by the way.
I'm proud of you.
I'm out.
Get more green space.
Losing me. I
Say get more green space.
We still got 6 more pages.
All right.
I'm ready to either take a break or. That's just
There's no red on page 7.
All
No red
right.
On page 7.
Right, should the planning commission deny a PUD application, an appeal may be filed with the Centerton City Council.
Like it.
And following the disapproval, what they have to do, we added, that was a new thing.
Submit for further disapproval.
It wasn't a statement that we stole somewhere else.
Yeah, the disapproval of the amendment. And what we don't have in here is what decisions the council can make. We need to have that in here.
I'm sorry, I was reading paragraph B, so I don't know.
Okay,
that I
go
heard you.
ahead. That's what I'm talking.
Okay, well, let me read it, 'cause I'm,
Which one?
Oh, we basically inject that from the planning.
Who's his representative? You want to hear that?
I think it's okay. For some reason, I don't know that I like the word disapproval. Denial, yeah, following denial. I mean, we just need to be consistent. If it's a, yeah.
We say deny up front, yeah.
Great.
Come on, keep going, next
Okay.
page.
Required contributions, installation of required traffic safety devices as determined by traffic study.
Anyone?
Okay.
Hold on.
Bueller.
Hey, yep, keep going.
Okay, procedure. A formal application for a conditional use plan unit development permit shall be submitted. And we took out that current large scale development for review and approval, and then
We even need to put that.
go on to 3 on the next page. And we talk about what is in that application requirements. And it shall include architectural elevation materials and an explanatory narrative and a concept plan. Of course, along with the application.
So, I mean, that's what we saw tonight, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Our current code says that they have to do with large scale development.
Yeah, that's too much.
We went,
We've
yeah.
changed it to concept plan, narrative, architectural development.
Okay, explanatory narrative. Number 2 is changed, description of proposed land uses and open space with percentages of land devoted to each use. You don't have to try to figure that out. We're asking all the time. Okay, and then number 5.
See,
So this, instead of submitting the large. Did I?
yeah, see
Yeah.
application. We just added that the publication fee needs to be paid at least 7 days prior to the public hearing.
I think you skipped it.
No, you skipped it.
No, I'm not there yet. I'm on B. Go
You were
back up.
correct there.
Did you hit 3
5.
application requirements?
Okay, so this had just took out
Okay.
a development plan requirement and we put concept plan. And I think don't submit with the required information. All right. Certified mailing. Instead of the return mail receipts, we do not, people hate to go to the post office and get the return receipts and sign it. They can't get to the post office in time. So what we have been doing, you can still do the tracking. Put it in USPS.com. Put the tracking numbers in, we get a report of when it's been delivered. And so forth. And so that's what I have been working, and we have a lot more success, not nearly as much return mail. So we just changed that up.
Doesn't count against them though, if people don't go get it.
No, but people aren't, we have better notification if they're not required to go get their mail from the post office.
Oh, yeah. I never went and got mine for that. So.
Yeah, a lot of people are signing up for, oh, that's IRS, I ain't
Yeah, get it.
anything. Court order.
Yeah, you've been served.
Yeah.
You're coming off the requirement of the certified mail?
No, they're still required to do certified mail. They're not required to pay for return.
Return receipt is what we don't require. But they do send it certified,
Yeah,
Okay.
so it has a tracking number.
and we still make them track it. We also make
You
them
can
sign.
look at whatever, if we just kind of took out some of the stuff, extra costs such as advertising, we don't advertise. That's the only thing we do is publish. But we did put a statement in, a sentence in here so that they pay the fee at least 7 days prior to the hearing, because we have found that. And then they get to one of them.
Oh, okay, because you don't get the bill for 2
Yeah.
months later. That's never mind.
Takes a bit of time.
Yeah. But part of me thinks you ought to get or immediate, well, you don't know what it's gonna be.
Well.
That's,
We
but
get it
we
within
want
a-
to give them some time
Okay.
to get it paid.
And we try to get everything in, a week
Sure.
before the meeting. Anyway. All right, planning commission review in action. You'll have, all right, the planning commission shall have authority to require that the following conditions for a PUD be met by the applicant.
Yeah.
That B.
To be recorded on.
It does not have to be recorded.
She's right. with
Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there.
Okay. Limitations on application. If subdivision or development plans do not comply with the approved PUD conditions, the planning commission shall deny the subdivision or development. Is it shall
Okay.
or?
Will.
Well, it depends on what you guys want,
Well,
quite frankly. I mean,
Certain things could come up,
May,
right.
yeah.
it's like tonight, if you say, okay, if you still could do these, you're good.
Yeah,
okay.
you guys will give them a little wiggle room.
Now, this is gonna be a hard one for me. Amendments to approved plans and specifications for a PUD shall be obtained only by following the procedures herein outlined for first approval, including re-notification to the public and a held public hearing. So this means, just like if they couldn't meet that street trees, they would have to re-notify everyone, come back to you with PUD for a change.
That's very good motivation to meet the street tree requirement.
I want to make that not easy.
Okay, we're aligned. Let's go.
Yeah.
That does mean for little changes.
Yeah.
Is there? We can't have any wiggle room on that, can we, Brian?
You either do.
It's either all.
No, the problem,
Fine, little.
you're making conditions and then you can't make appear that you're giving favoritism or whatnot. So it's one of the.
PUD that came in to have 2 story instead of 1 story, didn't change the
Yeah.
footprint, you still have to do re-notification.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I was just thinking like tonight, speaking of street trees, if we go to an alternative. That still meets the intent of PUD, but due to limitations or whatever, they changed it. Does that have to come back?
By this language, it does. Yeah, by this language.
The PUD that we had not too long ago where they raised the roof line 2 foot or something or whatever, he didn't have to come by over at Featherston, like.
Right.
They were changing that. We wouldn't make them re-notify for that, would we?
She's saying we would.
We would, but you gotta be, but like you said, you gotta be fair though. You can't say, well, some do and some don't. You can't define little.
Which is the reason last time we argued over, do you do a percentage? Do you do that? I just,
You allow for conditional uses, we allow Lorraine to make the decision of whether they have to send out mailing or not. Could we add that kind of language back where it's Lorraine's decision?
Or just say, at the discretion of,
You can put it at the discretion, right?
at the discretion of.
Be careful about what you said it is, right?
Job, Lorraine.
I'm discretionary.
Send them all. Send them all back, right?
Final stretch.
Yes, if I have any questions, I call Jeff and ask.
Well, the other thing with that is we're not asking for
I'm
full
like-
blown large scale or plat with it. So it's gonna be kind of hard to hit everything.
Mhm.
Okay, extensions and expiration. Okay. This is where we can't have one and we were trying to determine. Okay, did the PUD expire? Did the development plan expire? Did they both expire? What happens? So large scale or subdivision plans. How about preliminary? Preliminary, large scale. Okay. Must be submitted and approved within a year of the PUD approval. Or reapproval of the PUD. From the planning commission will be required. I think I should have a comment.
That'd be 2 years. Because technically you could approve the PUD,
Right.
wait a year, submit your large scale plans. Match the PUD, and then you have a year to start those. So should PUDs be good for 2 years?
But if they don't submit their development plans within a year after the PUD approval.
No, it's
then
gonna.
They have to either get it reapproved. Or ask for an extension.
Yeah, they have a year to get their preliminary development plans approved, not just submitted.
Oh, approved.
Approved and submitted and approved.
Oh, okay.
So then your preliminary, yeah, then you go into your year for the preliminary.
Yeah,
Some people dragging there.
yeah. Well, no, wait a second.
So that's what this is supposed to say.
Yeah.
To maintain PUD and preliminary plan approval, then construction must start within 1 year of the preliminary plan approval by the planning commission. So that way there we have some and they'll wait till the very end and then they'll finally get their pre-con. Yeah.
And I had a question on that. What do we define as construction?
After their pre-construction.
In the word intend, that they intend to complete it.
And in
I'm struggling with
I
that.
like construction. Construction must start.
way,
What weed is that?
because you have a time schedule, but it doesn't.
Pre-construction.
Yeah, but I mean, it's, you know, they're like, oh, well, we intended to start.
Start within
100% 25% complete.
Yeah.
No, 50%.
Of the 50?
50%.
First phase of
Like, man, I got diabetes.
Only. 50%.
Please, I'll just take out.
Okay, there you go.
Instruction within 3 years.
I got, I think that's a lead.
30%, yeah. Oh.
Record or something.
Yeah, you can scrape that. Gary McPike still with us?
I didn't have that. man.
You know, turn the hearing aid off. There you go.
In order to do so, they have to come with us and we bring it to you.
And that's in writing before the date of expiration. If it expires, they need to hear. You can start over.
Okay.
Okay, the bottom part added on here is basically how we came up with the chart that we did for the percentage of density and the extra green space required. So these is gonna give you some base information, you know, like kind of, if you're in our, let's do R3MF. Your RPH and they want to do 15% increase in density. So the high is eight that's allowed in an R3MF. If they go 15%, they could go up to 9.2 density. But then when you look down below, their green space would increase to 28.75. That's a little high on that front end, but most of them don't. You know, they're more in the 25 to 50 range.
I think that encourages staying to the density of the code.
Or they clearly know what's expected if they don't.
Okay.
We gave you some more swampland.
In RDOT right away.
Yeah.
If these changes, can we set a public hearing?
Let's put a public hearing.
4.
7.
5, do we have enough time?
Not the day after.
7-11 is the next one.
7. No, 7-5.
Council meeting.
That's the count, 7-5. 7-5.
Oh, gosh, I lied, 7-5.
7-5 is too close. We missed Sunday.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gotta be too close.
It would have to be the second one.
Oh, that's on a Wednesday night then.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we put it that one day.
I forgot.
We voted on that.
Next
Parking, so we don't have to.
For me, because there's.
You what?
July 18th.
Questions on the 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
Go happy, make it.
We voted and pushed that, remember?
You guys do the plan when it was here. Good to me.
All right. So next up, so let me back up, thanks to the council and Mayor Bill, Joey, Devin and Don are still here.
What was the vote on that? 5-3 was.
I do want to say,
I want to appeal that.
we were at
What happened?
the council meeting and they were adamant that going forward, anytime you guys are up to be reappointed, that we should post the position and let people apply for it before you guys get reappointed, so that the public has a chance to apply for it.
Brian's supposed to look into this.
Well, they say I'm supposed to look at you guys' bylaws. I don't think there's gonna be any language in the bylaws.
No, it-
I would say that's up to the Yeah, it's in the code. It's up to you.
We don't have a limitation.
Voluntary position. I remember.
Well, they may attempt to, to amend the code. I don't know.
That's what they're asking.
Have to do that.
The code required.
Duly noted, thank you.
It was voted.
Next meeting is 7/5, which Jerry just note that is a Wednesday. I just realized that the next meeting's on a Wednesday night, so you can't make it, just let us know. So just note that. And then there is some training. I got some emails today from Lorraine, so there's some training.
I sent y'all two
Yes.
calendar invitations for the next two sessions. The one in August is on zoning and rezoning.
July 4th.
Oh, but this one is on planning commissions and boards of adjustment. Another really good one. So if you want to attend, let me know. We can sign you up, pay the
Did I-
registration, you'll get an email that gives you the login.
And did I see there's a BZA scheduled in August, maybe? I saw
Yes.
a folder out there, so, okay. Anything else? No, thank you.
Yours are.
Second. Approved. Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Sure goes.